Chapter 254. Star City, Long's Dining Hall. In the luxurious presidential suite, Tang Guoxing was sitting on the sofa in the living room. He had quit smoking for more than 10 years, but now he lit a cigarette. Even if his children tried to stop him, he couldn't extinguish it. His old face was deeply wrinkled, and his eyes swept over the mobile phone on the coffee table in front of him from time to time. He was waiting for the information. This was the order he issued after leaving Star City Chinese Medical Hospital. Ring, ring, ring. The ringtone of the mobile phone finally sounded in Tang Guoxing's expectation. Speak. Tang Guoxing extinguished his cigarette and picked up the phone, speaking with an extremely serious tone. A voice came from the phone. Chief, Tan Xiu's information has been investigated. He's 20 years old this year and has excellent grades. This year, he won the Shuangqing Province Science Prize. His hometown is the Su family village in Qinghe County. He has no father and was raised by his mother, Su Lingyun. He has a grandmother in his hometown. When Tang Guoxing heard that Tan Xiu was 20 years old, he suddenly stood up. But when he heard the name, Su Lingyun, his old body couldn't help but tremble. He was sure. Tan Xiu was his grandson. His age matched. Single parent, only mother, matched. Su Lingyun, and the last word was Little Yun, which matched his youngest son's description. Tang Guoxing didn't believe that so many coincidences were purely coincidental. After listening to the report, after a long while he slowly sat back on the sofa. His eyes were a bit moist and complicated. He understood Tan Xiu's anger and Tan Xiu's hatred. His youngest son's matter happened too suddenly that he didn't have time to explain to Su Lingyun. But he didn't understand why Su Lingyun didn't go to the imperial capital to find the Tang family for so many years. Didn't she know that she had given birth to a grandson of the Tang family and was already their daughter-in-law? Tang Yunpeng stood at the side and looked at his father's complicated expression. After hesitating for a long time, he finally couldn't help but ask, "Dad, what's the result?" Tang Guoxing slowly raised his head and looked at his children and nephew in front of him. He nodded and said, "That's right. Tan Xiu is really your brother's son, my grandson." Tang Yunpeng quickly said, "But his age," Tang Guoxing said, "that's an excuse of not wanting to recognize us. His real age was 20 years old, and he only had one mother, Su Lingyun, and no father. He grew up in his grandmother's house in the countryside." In an instant, Tang Yunpeng, Tang Xia, and Tang Dong immediately understood. "Dad, we can't ignore him since he's a descendant of our Tang family," said Tang Yunpeng in a deep voice. "Whether he's willing or not, he has to return to the imperial capital with us and kowtow in front of the ancestral shrine. Moreover, his medical skills are extremely amazing. He can even cure your asthma for so many years. Perhaps he really has the confidence to save Yunda from his coma." Tang Guoxing bitterly shook his head and sighed. "It's a must. However, this process would probably be very difficult. You've also seen the hatred he showed after he confirmed our identity in his heart. The hatred that has been accumulating for 20 years won't disappear in a short period of time. Besides, our Tang family really doesn't have the qualifications to ask anything from him. Not to mention that he cured my asthma. He and his mother have been living a lonely and destitute life for so many years. I believe they have suffered a lot and suffered a lot." Tang Xia pondered for a moment and asked, "Dad, what's your decision?" Tang Guoxing said in a deep voice, "I'll go to Qinghe County myself. I'll go now and arrange a car for me." "I'll go too. I'll go too." Tang Yunpeng and Tang Xia called out in unison. Tang Dong opened his mouth, but he was afraid that his uncle would reprimand him, so he held back. Tang Guoxing shook his head and said, "Xiaoxia will go with me. Yunpeng, our Tang family has been in a very unstable stage because of my illness. You must return to the imperial capital to help your third uncle stabilize the situation. Also, settle Xiaodong's matter as soon as possible. Even if we have to exchange some benefits with the other party, we must let her take that position. This will be helpful for our Tang family's escape route in advance." Tang Yunpeng hesitated for a moment before he reluctantly agreed. Qinghe County, Su family village. Tan Xiu entered his grandmother's courtyard and saw his mother washing his grandmother's bedding, while Su Xiangfei was helping to dry the clean clothes. Xiao, didn't you say you won't come back for the time being? But upon seeing Tan Xiao, Su Lingyun suddenly looked surprised and got up to ask. Tan Xiao looked at Su Xiangfei, and then spoke to Su Lingyun, Mom, I have a very important matter to discuss with you. Let's find a quiet place. What important matter? Su Lingyun was confused. Tan Xiao walked toward the side room where he lived and said, Mom, you'll know after you come with me. But you have to be mentally prepared. No matter what you hear, don't get excited. Su Lingyun couldn't help laughing and said, You're still pretending to be mysterious, child. Okay, I promise I won't get excited. In the side room, Tan Xiao closed the door from the inside and released his divine sense. He found that Su Xiangfei didn't follow to eavesdrop, but sat at the place where his mother had just sat and continued to wash the bedding. He nodded secretly. He turned to look at Su Lingyun and said, Mom, I met some people today. Su Lingyun didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Do you need to report to me when you meet some people? By the way, are those top universities in the country throwing olive branches to you, the top scorer of science in Shuangqing province? I heard that every year, the top scorer of the college entrance examination in each province will have countless universities scrambling to recruit him. Tan Xiao said with a serious face, Mom, I didn't meet those people from those top universities. They're all surnamed Tang. Su Lingyun stared blankly for a moment before her expression greatly changed. Tan Xiao said in a deep voice, There's an old man named Tang Guoxing, his eldest son Tang Yunpeng, his daughter Tang Xia, and his nephew Tang Dong. They're from the imperial capital, the Tang family. Su Lingyun's body swayed. If she hadn't quickly held the wall, she would have fallen to the ground. Her expression became extremely gloomy, and her eyes flickered with fear. Tan Xiao held her arm and let her sit on the edge of the bed. Then, he continued, Mom, I think it's necessary for you to tell me something. Of course, there are still many things I haven't told you, such as news about him. News about him? Su Lingyun's pupils violently contracted as disbelief burst out from her eyes. He's still alive? Tan Xiao didn't speak again. He knew that his mother needed time to digest what he said. After a long while, Su Lingyun looked a bit perturbed and expectant as she asked in a low voice, Where is he? The imperial capital, Tan Xiao said lightly. Su Lingyun's face was filled with a deep sense of loss and tears were rolling in her eyes. She bit her lower lip and murmured, He's not dead. Why didn't he come to us? He clearly knew that I was pregnant with. Tan Xiao interrupted her and said, He's been in a coma for 20 years. He's in a vegetative state. Su Lingyun was shocked by Tan Xiao's words. She looked at Tan Xiao with a dull expression as if she couldn't believe what she had heard. 20 years? In a vegetative state? In an instant, tears burst out from Su Lingyun's eyes. A deep sense of regret arose in her heart. She regretted that she didn't go to the imperial capital that year. She knew that his home was there, yet she didn't go to find him. Tan Xiao gently hugged Su Lingyun and patted her back, saying, Mom, I've always known that you're a strong woman since I was a child. You may look soft on the surface, but you have a strong heart. Don't cry. Tell me what happened that year. After crying for a while, Su Lingyun raised her tearful face and said bitterly, That year, his comrade in arms called him out and told me that he's going out for a drink. I didn't take it seriously at that time and waited. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. He has disappeared, and there is no news of him. I called the police, but there was no result. I believed that he wouldn't abandon us, mother and son, so I thought he was dead. He died in a place I would never be able to find. Later on, I was taken back to my hometown by Su Shangwen and gave birth to you. After giving birth to you, I didn't give up and wanted to go to the Tang family in the imperial capital to find him. But I didn't dare to go. I was afraid. Are you afraid that I'll be taken away by the Tang family? Tan Xiao secretly sighed inside. Su Lingyun nodded without a word and cried. The Tang family is a big family in the imperial capital, with great power and influence. If they knew that I have Tang Yunda's son and that you have the Tang family's bloodline, I'm afraid they would take you away. I've lost my husband, so I can't lose my son. Have you ever thought about going to the imperial capital all these years? Asked Tan Xiu. Xiu, do you still remember when you were in junior high school? Su Lingyun said bitterly. Every year, I told you to go to my relative's house in the neighboring city. In fact, I didn't go to my relative's house in the neighboring city. I just relied on the little money I usually saved to go to the imperial capital to inquire about your father's news. I went there every year for more than a decade. I even went to the Tang family's old residence in the imperial capital hundreds of times. I hid far away and secretly observed them. But I've never heard anyone mention your father, and I've never seen him even once. Tan Xiu suddenly understood and said with all seriousness, Mom, I think you're doing the right thing. Growing up with you, I can feel happiness and maternal love. But what? Su Lingyun finally stopped crying and asked. But what are you going to do? Asked Tan Xiu. I'm going to find your father, Su Lingyun said without hesitation. I believe him. He must have his own difficulties as long as he's not dead. He has been in a coma for 20 years and has been lying on a cold bed without me around to take care of him. So, I'll accompany and take care of him for the rest of my life as long as he's alive. Chapter 255. I respect your choice, Mom, said Tang Xiu calmly. I'll recognize my father. But you know very well that I don't have feelings for anyone in the Tang family. As for the Tang family, I have no feelings for them. My family is here, and my roots are also here. Su Lingyun was silent for a long time before she nodded silently. Then, when are you going to see him? Asked Tan Xiu again. Su Lingyun suddenly seemed to realize something. Her hands instantly grabbed Tan Xiu's arms and asked nervously, Xiu, Mom knows that you have medical skills, and I heard that you're very good at it. Can you cure your father? I don't know his specific situation, so I don't dare to jump to a conclusion. Tan Xiu shook his head. A look of disappointment flashed in Su Lingyun's eyes, but she still nodded and said, Xiu, Xiangfei will take care of your grandmother at home. Let's go to the imperial capital now. It has been 20 years. After learning that her husband was still alive, Su Lingyun wished that she could immediately grow wings and fly to the imperial capital to see him. She would feel tormented if she delayed for even a minute. Tan Xiu shook his head and slowly said, Mom, I think we should wait for a while. I think someone will invite us to the imperial capital. Who will invite us? Su Lingyun stared blankly and asked with a puzzled expression. The Tang family, answered Tan Xiu. Su Lingyun's expression changed. She had been wary of the Tang family for the past 20 years. She was afraid that her son would be taken away by them, and she was afraid that her son would no longer be close to her in the future. However, she was not afraid now. Her son had grown up, and the relationship between her and her son was not something that could be taken away by fame and fortune. Xiu, why are you so sure that the Tang family will invite us? Tan Xiu lightly said, They want me to return to the Tang family, Mom. They want me to save him. Su Lingyun pondered for a moment and said slowly, Xiu, you have the blood of the Tang family flowing in your veins after all. It's only right for you to acknowledge your ancestors and return to the clan. Tan Xiu sneered, Why? Just because you have the blood of the Tang family flowing in your veins? If possible, I would rather have the blood of the Su family flowing in my veins. Mom, in my eyes, they are all strangers. I've never been willing to pay attention to strangers. So, I respect your choice and I hope you can respect mine as well. Su Lingyun opened her mouth, but found that she had no way to refute her son. In the end, she could only nod helplessly and give the choice to Tan Xiu. Xiu, you go out first. I wanted to be alone for a while. If the Tang family doesn't come today, then we'll go to the imperial capital tomorrow. Su Lingyun said. Tan Xiu nodded and walked out of the room. He saw Su Xiangfei washing the bedding in the courtyard. Tan Xiu was silent for a moment before he walked toward him. He took out a half-pack of cigarettes from his pocket and handed one to him. Then he lit one for himself. After taking a deep puff, Tan Xiu leaned on the tree beside Su Xiangfei and calmly said, Can you tell me how did you figure it out? Su Xiangfei squeezed the cigarette with his wet hand and forced a smile. Actually, I didn't figure it out myself. It was my father who made me figure it out. Good will be rewarded, and evil will be punished. Some people will inevitably take responsibility for what they have done in the past. Seeing my father and mother in jail now, it's as if I can see what they have done to you. If the police weren't powerful enough, I'm afraid you would be the one in jail now. That's all? Tan Xiu calmly asked. Su Xiangfei shook his head and said, Actually, I still had some resentment in my heart before I came back. After all, you're too ruthless. You destroyed my family and also ruined the rest of my father's life. But after eavesdropping on my aunt's conversation with you, I realized that my resentment was so ridiculous. The real kind-hearted person is my aunt. Tan Xiu nodded. After a moment of silence, he slowly said, Study for another year. Then take the college entrance test next year. You don't need to worry about your life. My mother won't leave you alone. Su Xiangfei suddenly smiled. His smile was particularly bright. He shook his head and said, With my grades, I'm afraid I can only enter an ordinary university after another year of high school. It's impossible for me to enter a key university. I've already thought about it. After Grandma's injury is healed, I'll leave Qinghe County and go outside with my own ability. No matter what, I'll return to my roots in the future and return to the Su family village. Tan Xiu said, Take down my cell phone number. But I hope you can contact me only when you're forced to. Su Xiangfei nodded without a word. Tan Xiu didn't speak again. After smoking a cigarette, he walked toward the outside of the courtyard. Tan Xiu. Upon seeing Tan Xiu coming out, Su Ben and Su Quan quickly called out. Tan Xiu said, Stay at home for a few more days. I can't go back to Star City for the time being. I have to go to the Imperial capital to solve some things. I'll contact you again when I return to Star City from the Imperial capital. Su Quan said with a smile, That's great. Brother Ben and I originally planned to go to Star City a few days later. It's because we want to get some of the silver dragon grass you need. Tan Xiu quickly said, I advise you not to go. Even if you go, you must call more people, and you can only search in the periphery of the back mountain. That fierce beast you said is very dangerous. Ordinary people simply can't bring harm to it. Furthermore, it's very likely that they will die on the mountain. Su Ben knew Tan Xiu's character. Seeing that he was so serious, Su Ben immediately said, Then we'll listen to you and call more people to go up the mountain. No matter how many silver dragon grasses we can find, we won't go deep into the mountain. Tan Xiu nodded and said, It's good to remember that. I'll try to come back before the end of the summer vacation. I'll go to the back mountain to solve that fierce beast. Alright, you two go busy yourselves. Wait for my call. Alright. Su Ben and Su Quan replied and then walked towards Su Ben's house next door. 2 hours later, 2 black Audi cars slowly stopped outside the courtyard gate. As the 4 guards in civilian clothes dispersed, Tang Xia opened the car's door and helped Tang Guisheng out. Is this the place? Tang Guisheng looked at the dilapidated wooden door and the broken courtyard wall. Tang Xia nodded and said, Dad, according to the information sent to me, it's this place. I used the GPS to locate it. It's this house. Tang Guisheng looked at the 4 guards and said in a deep voice, You stay outside. No matter what happens, don't step into this courtyard. Understood. The 4 guards immediately saluted and complied. Tang Guisheng strode into the courtyard. When he saw Su Xiangfei in the courtyard, a surprised expression flashed in his eyes as he immediately asked, Young man, do Su Lingyun and Tan Xiu live here? Su Xiangfei got up from the chair and asked, Yes, who are you? Tang Guisheng nodded and said, I'm Tang Guisheng. Are they here now? Su Xiangfei turned his head and shouted, Auntie, someone is looking for you. Su Lingyun and Tan Xiu came out of the house. When Tan Xiu saw Tang Guisheng and Tang Xia, he secretly sighed inwardly. Although he had guessed that they would come back, he didn't expect that they would come so fast. He was afraid that after he left Star City Chinese Medical Hospital, Tang Guisheng had sent someone to investigate his information. What are you doing here? I told you that we have nothing to do with your Tang family, said Tan Xiu indifferently. Tang Guisheng bitterly said, Xiu, I'm Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu said in a deep voice. Tang Guisheng was silent for a moment before he helplessly said, Tan Xiu, this is your mother, and also my youngest daughter-in-law, right? Su Lingyun was stunned. Although she heard from her son that someone from the Tang family would come, she never thought that it would be Tang Guosheng. She knew Tang Guosheng. He was not only the country's top official, but also her husband's father, her father-in-law in name. I'm Su Lingyun. Tang Guosheng came to the front of Su Lingyun and Tan Xiao and bitterly said, 20 years ago, I sent people to turn the entire Star City upside down, but unfortunately, I couldn't find you and your mother. Yunda only told me that you're called Little Yun, but I don't know your full name. I didn't have any information about you, so I personally went to Star City 20 years ago to pick you up, but I couldn't find you. I've let you and your mother suffer all these years. Upon hearing this, Su Lingyun's tears welled up in her eyes again. Tang Xia came to Su Lingyun's side and said with a smile, Sister-in-law, why don't you call him Dad? Su Lingyun opened her mouth, but her voice was stuck in her throat. She knew why her husband came to Star City alone in the past. It was because he was driven out by his family. At that time, she left the countryside and worked as a nurse in a hospital in Star City. At that time, she met Tang Yunda, who was injured and hospitalized without anyone to take care of him. The two slowly developed feelings for each other and came together. Later on, after she got pregnant, Su Lingyun, who didn't even get a marriage certificate, learned his true identity from her husband. She also knew that the Tang family was in a huge crisis at that time, so Tang Guosheng was forced to drive her husband out of the family and announce to the public that they had severed their relationship as father and son. At first, her husband was angry and didn't have any contact with his family. It wasn't until she got pregnant that her husband called Tang Guosheng full of excitement and happiness. She had seen this father-in-law on TV, but it was the first time she saw him in person. So, she couldn't call him. Tang Guosheng forced a smile and said, Little Yun, I know it's really difficult for you to call me father-in-law now. However, you're my son's daughter-in-law and have given birth to the Tang family's blood. I won't force you if you don't want to recognize me now. I just hope that I can compensate you and your mother in the future. Su Lingyun raised her head and looked at Tang Guosheng, saying, I want to see Yunda. Tang Guosheng said without hesitation, The reason I came here this time is to take you and your son to the imperial capital. Before coming here, I know that your mother is also injured. If you want, you can also take her with you. Su Lingyun turned to look at Tan Xiao. Tan Xiao calmly said, My mother wants to go to the imperial capital to see him. Our family is here, not the imperial capital. If possible, I hope you can let us take him back. We're a family in the truest sense, and the Tang family is just an outsider. This chapter is for Sect Master Little Pocket. There will be a regular update at 5 p.m. Chapter 256. Tang Guosheng calmly looked at Tan Xiao with eyes sparkling with wisdom. He had experienced countless storms and waves in his life and had a very high attainment in distinguishing people. After a short contact, he was able to figure out Tan Xiao's character. Therefore, Tang Guosheng didn't get angry at Tan Xiao's words. Certainly, he would have been furious if someone else dared to speak to him with such an attitude. But he owed too much to Tan Xiao. Tan Xiao, if you can cure your father, he's free to go wherever he wants. If you can't cure him and still insist on bringing him back to Star City, I'll agree. However, I have a condition. Star City's medical facilities can't be compared to the imperial capital's, so I need to send a professional nurse to take care of him after bringing him here. As for your remarks just now, I understand the resentment in your heart. It's indeed my fault for not being able to find you and your son that year, causing you to suffer and suffer all these years. But you're surnamed Tang and have the Tang family's blood flowing in your veins. The Tang family is your home. Tan Xiao snorted coldly and didn't speak anymore. Tang Xia looked at Tan Xiao before her eyes finally fell on Su Lingyun. She then said with a smile, "Second sister-in-law, you should have gone to the imperial capital that year. I believe that my second brother has told you about our family situation. Although the Tang family is a big family, the elders don't interfere too much with the children's marriage, nor do they have any sectarian bias. Dad really came to Star City in person and stayed here for a few days. Even Big Brother took some time to come to Star City every year to look for you after second brother was in a coma." After saying that, Tang Xia walked 2 steps towards Su Lingyun and pulled her hand. After the smile disappeared, a bit of bitterness was revealed on her face as she said, "Second sister-in-law, do you know what Mom's biggest thought these years? It's her grandson who has been living outside. Every time someone mentions second brother, she always washes her face with tears. She loves her son dearly and misses her grandson." Su Lingyun's heart trembled. A wave of warmth came from the bottom of her heart, causing her resentment towards the Tang family to lessen a lot. She had originally thought that she was the only one who had been searching for her husband all these years. She never imagined that the Tang family would also be searching for her and her son. Tang Xia said again, "Second sister-in-law, come back to the capital with us. That is our home. If you don't want to live with your parents in the old house in Sijio City, I can buy you a villa. If my nephew is willing to study, he can go to the Imperial Capital University. I am willing to take care of all your daily needs." Su Lingyun opened her mouth and looked at Tan Xiao. There was still a hint of pleading in his eyes. "I'm sorry, we're not used to living in the Imperial Capital," said Tan Xiao lightly. "Also, we don't need a single cent from the Tang family. Although my wealth can't compare to the Tang family's, it's enough for me and my mother to live a wealthy life." Su Lingyun then said, "Yes. We have a good life here. Xiao has grown up and has the ability. My restaurant business is also very good, so I really can't live in the imperial capital for a long time." "Xiaoyan, Tan Xiao, I'll agree with you no matter where you and your son want to live," said Tang Guisheng in a deep voice. "Don't hesitate to tell me if you have any needs. As long as it's within my means, I'll do it for you even if the Tang family's vitality is greatly damaged. Do remember that the Tang family owes you and your son, and I'll make it up to you in the future." Tan Xiao was shaken inwardly and disbelief flashed in his eyes. He didn't expect that Tang Guisheng would make such a big promise. At this moment, the door to his heart that had been sealed cracked open slightly. But he still couldn't get close to the Tang family right now. "Bring the things inside." Tang Xia called toward the courtyard's entrance. Then, she turned her head and said to Su Lingyun with a smile, "Second sister-in-law, Dad heard that your mother was injured, so he specially sent someone to buy some nutritious products. Furthermore, this is the first time you visit your family, so you can't be lacking in etiquette. As for those who injured your mother, except for the vice president of the county hospital who went missing, the rest will immediately receive their due punishment." Immediately, the 4 guards outside the courtyard's entrance quickly carried more than a dozen boxes and came to the front of everyone. This, Su Lingyun was somewhat at a loss. Tan Xiao lightly said, "Mom, since they have good intentions, we'll accept them. Also, you can't slap a smiling face. Since they didn't come to look for trouble, we can't neglect them. Please invite them inside the house." Only then did Su Lingyun wake up and quickly said, "You're too polite. Please enter the house. Mom is inside." After a while, Tang Guisheng and Tang Xia saw Mrs. Zhang. When Mrs. Zhang learned about their identities, she first cursed them. Then, after learning the whole story of the matter, she looked a bit gratified. She felt happy for her daughter and excited that her son-in-law was still alive. "Xiao, Grandma knows that your medical skills are excellent. You must cure your father. He has been missing for so many years because of a special reason. Don't blame him anymore. Let's go to the imperial capital. Cure him so that Grandma can see my son-in-law in her lifetime." After learning about the situation, Mrs. Zhang called Tan Xiao to the bedside and exhorted him. "I'll try my best." Tan Xiao nodded and said. 10 minutes later, Su Lingyun packed her things and left the courtyard. "You drive and lead the way. My mom will ride in my car." Tan Xiao put the suitcase in the trunk and looked at Tang Guisheng and the others. Tang Xia quickly said, I'll also ride in your car and chat with second sister-in-law on the way. Su Lingyun revealed a smile and said, okay. Tan Xiu didn't stop her. Generally, he wouldn't stop Su Lingyun's decision. After getting on the car, he saw Tang Xia holding his mother's arm intimately and chatting in the back seat. Then he started the car and followed the two black Audi cars in front, quickly leaving the Su family village. Although he just got his driver's license, he followed the two cars on the highway and headed north. The imperial capital. Mingyuan Villa Complex. The Tang family's third son, Tang Guishou, was reading the information in his hand. In front of him, there were two middle-aged men in military uniforms, standing ramrod straight. On their shoulders, there were general stars, the rank of major general. Bam! The door was forcefully pushed open as Tang Guishou's son, Tang Yunqing, rushed into the room and shouted, Dad, it's a big event. Tang Guishou frowned and coldly snorted, even if the sky falls down, you must remain calm and steady like Mount Tai. Look at yourself, what kind of decency is this? Tang Yunqing hurriedly said, No, it's really a big event. First uncle and the others are on the way back to the imperial capital. I just received a call from Big Brother. He wants us to rush to the ancestral house in 4 hours. Tang Guishou was surprised and said, You need to rush to the ancestral house? Yunpeng didn't say what happened? Tang Yunqing said, Second brother's son has been found. He has brought them back to the imperial capital. Moreover, the most important thing is that first uncle is secretly going to Star City to find the divine doctor surnamed Tang. It's second brother's son, Tan Xiu. What? Tang Guishou's complexion changed and his eyes burst with a bright light. He didn't expect that his nephew's flesh and blood would actually be found. All these years, what the old lady had been thinking about the most was the grandson who was wandering outside, his life and death unknown. That's great. Yunqing immediately informed the others to rush to our family's ancestral house in 4 hours. I didn't expect it, I really didn't expect it. My grandson that I've never seen before is actually a divine doctor. If he can cure Yunda's illness. Thinking up to there, the excitement on Tang Guishou's face turned more intense. Tang Yunqing quickly said, Dad, I'll immediately inform everyone. Imperial Capital, Imperial Dragon Club. Tang Wei was holding a crystal bottle and tasting red wine. Beside him were two young men, each with an enchanting woman in their arms, drinking and having fun. The two young men were called Zhong Lu and Zhang Hongyan. Both of them were from the capital's aristocratic families and were also Tang Wei's childhood friends. Bam! The door of the luxury box was kicked open from the outside. A cute girl in a one-piece dress rushed into the private room. When she saw Tang Wei sitting on the sofa accompanied by two enchanting girls, her complexion suddenly changed. She dashed to the front of Tang Wei. Under everyone's surprised eyes, she grabbed Tang Wei's arm and hurriedly said, Big brother, don't seek pleasure here anymore. Grandpa said that all the family members must return to the ancestral house. Something big has happened. Tang Wei rolled his eyes and was at a loss whether he had to laugh or cry as he said, Tang, even if the sky falls, there's still a tall one to hold it up. What's the rush? Besides, didn't Grandpa go out of town? What could have happened? Also, how did you know I was here? Tang pulled Tang Wei out of the box in one breath and quickly said, Don't worry about how I know. Just follow me. It's second uncle. Second uncle's son has been found. He's now on the way back to the imperial capital with Grandpa. Hurry up. If we go back late, Grandpa will be angry if he finds out that we're not in the ancestral house. Second uncle's son? Tang Wei stared blankly for a moment before his expression suddenly changed. He broke free from Tang's hand and returned to the box's entrance. He looked at Zhong Lu and Zhang Hongyan who were about to come out and said, You should have heard it, right? I have an urgent matter to deal with and need to go home. You can have fun first. I'll look for you again when I have time. Zhong Lu and Zhang Hongyan looked at each other in dismay, but they still nodded. They knew that Tang Wei's second uncle had become a vegetable due to an accident 20 years ago. They didn't expect that he actually had a son outside. Brother Tang, hurry up and go. Imperial capital at a military base. In the olive green military camp, Tang Ning, the commander of a special forces company, was supervising the soldiers training at the shooting range. At this moment, a young man in military uniform ran to his side and handed over a mobile phone, saying, "Company commander, there's a call for you." Tang Ning took the phone with an expressionless face and said in a deep voice, "Tang Ning speaking. Return to the family's ancestral house." Tang Yunqing's voice came out of the phone. Tang Ning frowned and said, "Fourth uncle, I'm training my men." "What's the matter? Can't we talk on the phone?" "Your second uncle's son has been found. The old man is taking him from Star City to the imperial capital." "What? I'll go back immediately." Chapter 257. Imperial Capital, Splendid Embroidery House. Tang Ying stood in front of a spacious desk, looking at the landscape paintings spread on the table in front of her. Her eyes flickered with shock. At her side, Mu Weining faintly smiled and said, "I didn't have much hope for that Tan Xiu at first. The reason why I promised him was that I didn't want to agree to that hooligan's request. Who would have thought that Tan Xiu turned out to be so amazing? It was a blessing in disguise for me to get such a peerless painting." Tang Ying exclaimed with deep envy, "I've seen countless master-level paintings, and I've even admired many peerless ancient paintings. However, none of them can compare to this painting. If there's a chance, I'll definitely ask him to paint one for me." "He said that he won't paint easily." Mu Weining chuckled. "Besides, I can feel that he's not too keen on painting even though his painting skills are godly." "You know him, don't you?" said Tang Ying. "Help me put in a good word when the time comes." Mu Weining forced a smile and said, "It'd be great if I could put in a good word. Tan Xiu's character is very strange." "Very strange? How so?" asked Tang Ying in surprise. Mu Weining raised her slender jade-like hand and gently brushed the hair on her forehead. She pretended to reveal a flirtatious posture and smilingly asked, "Do you think I'm beautiful?" Tang Ying was at a loss whether to cry or laugh. "Beautiful? Of course, you're beautiful. Who doesn't know that you're the first beauty in the imperial capital? Who among the young talents in the imperial capital doesn't want to get close to you and embrace a beauty? I dare say that there's no man in the world who doesn't want you as long as they have a normal sexual orientation. But Tan Xiu doesn't want that," said Mu Weining with a smile. "What?" Tang Ying stared blankly for a moment before shaking her head and saying, "I don't believe it. Unless he's not a man, he'll never turn a blind eye to you." "I've tested him, and his words are very direct," said Mu Weining. "Do you know what he said to me?" "What did he say?" asked Tang Ying curiously. "At that time, I asked him if there was something wrong with his sexual orientation," said Mu Weining with a smile. "Or is my beauty not attractive to you at all?" As a result, he told me that his sexual orientation was normal, and that if I was willing to sleep with him, he would not refuse. However, when he said that it was a one-night stand without any emotional foundation, it was actually very meaningless. In addition, there is another kind of woman that he is too lazy to touch. Tang Ying widened her eyes as if she had heard the funniest joke in the world. However, Mu Weining's words still deeply attracted her. She couldn't wait to know what kind of woman he was too lazy to touch. Mu Weining continued, "The kind of woman he's too lazy to touch is a virgin like me. He said that because it was his first time, it would be very troublesome in the future. He's not afraid of anything but trouble." Tang Ying couldn't help but laugh out loud. He is indeed strange and eccentric. This is probably the most unbelievable thing I've ever heard in my life. Nowadays, which man didn't like women to give their bodies to them? This one, however, is too lazy to touch a pure woman because he's afraid of trouble. I'm really speechless. Mu Weining covered her mouth and chuckled, but then slowly said, "I can feel that the reason why he doesn't want to touch a virgin woman is because he doesn't want to take responsibility." An irresponsible man? Tang Ying was surprised. "It's not that he's an irresponsible man," said Mu Weining. "It's because he doesn't want to take responsibility that he doesn't touch a pure woman." The smile on Tang Ying's face gradually faded away. She was silent for a while and then raised her thumbs up and praised, "I admire him very much, even worship him. First, he's definitely a gentleman to be able to stay calm in the face of your temptation. Secondly, he knows that he won't take responsibility, so he doesn't touch a pure woman. Such a man is definitely a good man. Suddenly, a strange expression appeared on her face. She pulled Mu Weining and circled her twice, clicking her tongue and sighing, I never thought that the first beauty of our imperial capital, Miss Mu, would actually have a crush on him. Don't deny it. Given your character, you would never test him if you're not tempted. Mu Weining's pretty face blushed. She rolled her eyes at Tang Ying and snappily said, Don't talk nonsense. I just can't stand it, his attitude of wanting to drive me away. Think about it. A girl doesn't mind it, but he does mind being alone with a man and a woman in a room. I just want to see if he's really serious or just pretending to be serious. Don't find excuses, said Tang Ying disdainfully. How many boys have fawned on you since you were a child? How many people have done all kinds of absurd things just to get you to look at them? But you've always been arrogant and disinclined to pay attention to them. This Tan Xiu must have moved you. Mu Weining corrected her again. He didn't move me, but aroused my curiosity. Don't tell me you're not curious about him? After all, he's a young man with great ability, but he's so low-key that it makes people's hair stand on end. Tang Ying hesitated for a moment before she smilingly said, I'm indeed curious about him from you. However, he's fundamentally different from you. You're attracted to him, while I heard it from hearsay. Great Bell Mu, haven't you heard the saying that once a woman is curious about a man, it's the prelude to fall in love with him? You, Mu Weining opened her mouth. Ring, 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 Tang Ying's mobile rang from her bag at the side. Giving Mu Weining a teasing look, Tang Ying took out her mobile and smilingly said after connecting the call, Are you looking for me, fourth uncle? After a while, the smile on Tang Ying's face froze. Her beautiful eyes stared wide with incredulity in them. After listening to the other party's words, she involuntarily exclaimed, You mean, my second uncle's son has been found? And he's on the way to the imperial capital with Grandpa? Good. I'll go back to the ancestral residence and wait for you. After hanging up the phone, Tang Ying quickly put her mobile into her bag. She then looked at Mu Weining and said, Weining, I have something to do at home, so I gotta hurry back. I'll look for you after I'm done. Mu Weining raised her brows and curiously said, Big Sissing, if my memory serves me correctly, your second uncle became a vegetable 20 years ago, right? His biological son? An excited look flashed in Tang Ying's eyes as she nodded and said, That's right. My second uncle indeed had a woman before he became a vegetable, and that woman also gave birth to a child. 20 years ago, the elders of the Tang family had sent a lot of people to Star City to search for him, but unfortunately, they couldn't find him. Never did I expect that he would be found 20 years later. My grandma will be very excited if she knows about it. Mu Weining suddenly understood and said, Then you should leave quickly. I'll be here every day before the semester starts at the University of Shanghai. Come here if you have time. Alright. All the immediate family members of the Tang family in the imperial capital received a call from Tang Yunqing. Dozens of family members then headed toward the Tang family's ancestral residence. At the Tang family's ancestral residence, it was a large courtyard house in the capital. Under the grapevine trellis, a silver-haired old lady was holding a pure white Persian cat drowsily. The tea on the stone table in front of her had already turned cold. She was Qin Changyue, Tang Guosheng's wife. Mom, how come you're sleeping here? Tang Yumping's wife, Kai Xinru, came to the courtyard with a bag of fresh vegetables and a housekeeper. Qin Changyue opened her eyes and saw Kai Xinru. She immediately sat up straight, waved her hand and said with a smile, It's all right. The weather is very hot now, so I won't catch a cold. I originally wanted to drink tea and listen to the radio, but somehow, the radio broke down. I almost fell asleep. Kai Xinru said with a smile, Mom, I told you to throw away that broken radio of Dad's. I'll buy you a new one. That won't do. Qin Changyue said with a smile. That radio is your dad's treasure. Although it has been repaired many times, it can be fixed every time. Kai Xinru said with a smile, All right, then. How about you change your clothes? There's a big event happening in our family tonight. There are fresh vegetables, meat, and seafood. Chapter 258. Ring, 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 Tang Yumping's cell phone rang. He picked up the call and spoke a few words with the caller. Then he put away his phone and said, "Mom, second uncle, Tang Dong, and Tang Yen have arrived at the Imperial Capital Airport. They will arrive in an hour at most." The smile on Qin Changyue's face turned thicker as she sighed. "Your second uncle has been staying in Jingmen Island for 5 years. I didn't expect that he would come back specifically because of Xiu's matter. Now, all the people of our Tang family have finally arrived." At the side, Tang Guosho coldly snorted and said, "Second brother has been hiding in Jingmen Island all these years, enjoying a leisurely life and leaving this mess in the imperial capital to me and big brother. This time, we must make him bleed and send a batch of experts to the imperial capital." Qin Changyue said with a smile, "Third brother. In fact, you and your big brother both know that although second brother has gone to Jingmen Island, he has brought a lot of benefits to our Tang family all these years. Don't give him that face. Besides, the water in the imperial capital is too deep. In case our Tang family falls one day, Jingmen Island will be one of our escape routes." Tang Guosho was silent for a moment. Then he forced a smile and said, "Sister-in-law, I actually understand what you said. But thinking about second brother enjoying a happy life in Jingmen Island while me and big brother are busy in the imperial capital for our Tang family, I'm not in a good mood. Forget it, forget it. I won't grumble in front of so many juniors." Ha, hee hee, everyone in the Tang family couldn't help but laugh. Soon, Tang Guosheng arrived with Tang Dong, Tang Yen, and 4 other family members. Tang Guosheng's body was weak and sickly with a pale complexion. But when he was bickering with his third brother, Tang Guosho, he looked particularly spirited. At the imperial capital's highway intersection, Tang Xiu's Land Rover Range Rover was also stopped. Because his license plate number was limited, the highway traffic police found that Tang Xiu had been driving for a long time, violating the traffic regulations. "Can't you bend the rules?" Sitting in the driver's seat, Tang Xiu looked at the traffic police outside the window and asked. The traffic police looked solemn. One of them shook his head and said, "Sorry, please get off." At this moment, Tang Min, who was sitting in the back seat, slowly opened the rear window. She handed over a certificate and lightly said, "Please make an exception. We have something important to discuss." The traffic policeman took the certificate. His expression drastically changed when he glanced at it. He immediately saluted Tang Min and respectfully said, "Greetings, Minister Tang. I didn't know you were in the car just now. I hope you can forgive me." Saying that, the traffic policeman returned the ID to Tang Min. Tang Min nodded and then said to Tang Xiu, "Let's go. I'm fine." Tang Xiu glanced at the traffic police outside the car window, then started the car and drove toward the 2 autos parked on the side of the road 100 meters ahead. In his heart, he secretly sighed, "Power is really a good thing. If it was an ordinary person, I'm afraid that not only would they have to accept a fine, but they would also have to deduct points on their driver's license. I'm afraid they might even be detained." Tang family ancestral residence. Tang Xiu stopped the car with a glint flashing in his eyes. Just as he entered the alley, he saw 4 armed guards guarding the place. Along the way, there were at least a dozen or so guards either in the open or in the dark. On both sides of the Tang family's ancestral residence's gate were 2 armed guards in military uniforms and white gloves. However, what attracted his attention was not those guards, but the dozens of Tang family members standing outside the courtyard's gate. The first one that caught his eyes was the silver-haired old lady who was surrounded by dozens of people. "Second sister-in-law, Tang Xiu, we've arrived," said Tang Min with a smile. Tang Xiu calmly nodded. He turned to look at his mother, who looked a bit nervous in the back seat, and said, "Let's get off, Mom." Su Lingyun hesitated for a moment before she nodded silently. Qin Changyue's eyes had been staring at the 3 cars. When she saw her husband, Tang Guosheng, she rushed forward and excitedly asked, "Where's my grandson? Where's my second daughter-in-law?" Tang Guosheng pointed to Tang Xiu and Su Lingyun, who got off the Land Rover with a smile on his face. Qin Changyue's eyes instantly locked on Tang Xiu. His footsteps were somewhat staggered as he moved forward. When she came before Tang Xiu, her trembling hands grabbed Tang Xiu's arm. Her face was full of excitement as tears gushed out of her eyes. She sobbed, You're my grandson? My biological grandson? Tan Xiu frowned. He somewhat rejected the old lady and the Tang family's people. After a moment of silence, he slowly said, Nominally, I'm your biological grandson. Qin Changyue hugged Tan Xiu tightly. Her tears flowed as she wailed. Tan Xiu didn't struggle. His expression was as tranquil as ever. Feeling Qin Changyue's tears wetting his clothes, he felt somewhat helpless inside. Familial love. He really felt it. That kind of agitation, that kind of excitement, that kind of joyful atmosphere made him feel exceptionally complicated. After a long while, only then did Qin Changyue let go of Tan Xiu under Tang Min's persuasion. However, Tan Xiu's hand was still firmly held by her. Then she looked at Su Lingyun and excitedly said, Your little Yun, the one Yunda mentioned? You're my second daughter-in-law? Su Lingyun was very emotional. After being moved by the affection shown by the Tang family, she nodded and said, I'm Su Lingyun, Yunda's daughter-in-law. Qin Changyue's other hand grabbed Su Lingyun and said with tears, Child, our Tang family has let you down all these years. We let you and your mother wander outside. I'm sure you must have suffered a lot and suffered a lot. Don't worry. Since we found you, our Tang family will absolutely not let you suffer even the slightest bit. If anyone dares to bully you in the future, just tell this old woman and I'll risk my life to fight them. Su Lingyun's eyes were also full of tears as she nodded repeatedly. She enjoyed the feeling of being recognized by her husband's family, enjoying the sudden familial atmosphere. Qin Changyue pulled Su Lingyun and Tan Xiu to the front of the Tang family's other members and said, Let me introduce you. They are our Tang families. Tan Xiu interrupted Qin Changyue and lightly said, There's no need to introduce them. I still have important things to deal with later, so take me to see Tang Yunda. If I can cure him, then it's best. If I can't cure him, then it's his bad fate. Except for Tang Guosheng and Tang Min, the tens of Tang family's members looked at each other in dismay, as if they couldn't believe their ears. What was this? Tan Xiu finally broke free from Qin Changyue's hand. He looked at Tang Guosheng and said, You should still remember what I said before. Your Tang family is your Tang family, and we are us. The Tang family's threshold is high, and ordinary people like us can't reach it. So, you don't need to waste your time and feelings. Take me to see Tang Yunda. Otherwise, I and Mom will leave immediately. Tan Xiu, how can you say that? Tang Yunpeng angrily shouted. Even if you think we're strangers, we're still your relatives. There are so many people here who are your elders. How can you? Tan Xiu waved his hand to interrupt him and indifferently said, Don't use your elders to pressure me. I was born and grew up in the Su family. If it weren't for my mother's insistence, I wouldn't even want to be surnamed Tang. So, don't talk to me about family. I'll ask you one last time, where is Tang Yunda? Shut up, Xiu. A bit of anger appeared on Su Lingyun's face as she scolded him in a deep voice. Tan Xiu was silent for a moment before he took a step back and said, Mom, I respect your choice. But I hope you can also understand my choice. I don't have feelings for the Tang family, not now, and I'm afraid it'll be difficult for me to have feelings for them in the future. Originally, I didn't want to come to the imperial capital, but I promised you and Grandma that I'll cure Tang Yunda, my father's illness. At this moment, the complexion of everyone in the Tang family turned unsightly. Tan Xiu didn't pay attention to them. He had been in the immortal world for thousands of years and only remembered his mother. Occasionally, he would think of his grandmother who loved him dearly. He didn't have any feelings, but his bloodline couldn't bind him. The reason why he could come to the imperial capital this time was entirely because of his mother. Su Lingyun fell into silence. She didn't know how to deal with the current situation as she had never seen such a big scene before. She had mixed feelings about her son refusing to recognize the Tang family, but she didn't want to force him. Tang Guosheng sighed inwardly and opened his mouth to break the deadlock. Tan Xiu, it doesn't matter if you don't recognize us now. I know you're repulsed by your family, but I believe that even if you have a heart of stone, we can still melt your heart with what we'll do in the future. The descendants of the Tang family are the descendants of the Tang family. The thread of familial affection can never be cut off, nor can we give it up. Let's go. Your father should be sent here. I'll take you to see him myself. Tan Xiao nodded and reached out to grab Su Lingyun's hand. On the one hand, it gave her courage, and on the other hand, it also let the Tang family know that he could protect his mother now and didn't need them to do anything. A few minutes later, Su Lingyun and Tan Xiao were led by the Tang family to the tile-roofed house in the innermost part of the ancestral residence. When Su Lingyun saw Tang Yunda lying on the bed, big drops of tears fell from her eyes. Yunda! Grieving, she cried and threw herself to the edge of the bed. Her calloused hands tightly grabbed Tang Yunda's thin palm. It had been 20 years. It had been exactly 20 years. She had been thinking about it day and night, dreaming of seeing her husband again. Now, her dream had finally become a reality. It made her cry bitterly, telling her how she missed him all these years and venting all the grievances she had suffered all these years. At this moment, even if she were to die, she could still smile in the underworld. Standing at the side, Tan Xiao looked at the unconscious and thin Tang Yunda lying on the bed. He secretly sighed inside. He had never imagined that he would meet this person under such circumstances. After waiting quietly for more than 10 minutes, when his mother's mood stabilized a lot, he gently patted Su Lingyun's shoulder and said, "Let me see him, Mom. I'll do my best if I can cure him." Good. An intense expectation burst out from Su Lingyun's eyes as she quickly retreated to the side. Today's second update, weekly asking for a recommendation vote _. Chapter 259. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, Tan Xiao grabbed Tang Yunda's wrist, pressed his fingers on his pulse, and quietly felt his pulse. To his relief, although Tang Yunda's pulse was weak and his qi deficiency was serious, he could still maintain the operation of his body's functions. Moreover, at this rate, he could live for at least 8 to 10 years. Putting down his wrist, Tan Xiao helped him up and let his slightly stiff body sit up. Then he pressed his fingers on Tang Yunda's head. With the integration of a trace of star force, Tan Xiao's spiritual sense also entered. The brain. It was the most mysterious part of the human body. When Tan Xiao became a supreme in the immortal world, he could only control and use 60% of the brain. He couldn't develop or use the other 40%. Tan Xiao checked and his face turned ugly because he found that Tang Yunda's brain nerves were severely atrophied and there were extravasated blood at the neuron nodes. Even the extravasated blood had solidified and showed signs of blocking the blood supply to the brain. In addition, the meridians in his brain had been cut off from the sea of consciousness, and there was a special gray substance blocking it. It was this gray substance that trapped his consciousness in the sea of consciousness and prevented him from perceiving everything outside. His consciousness was trapped. Tan Xiao had tasted this kind of feeling before. In the past, his wisp of spiritual sense went to the immortal world and appeared in someone else's body. His spiritual sense was trapped in the other person's body for more than 3 months. Finally, by chance, he broke free and became the owner of that body. The feeling of being trapped. Very depressing. Very painful. He couldn't sleep, and he couldn't die. He could only drift in the endless darkness. If he had a strong mind, he might be able to persist for a long time. But if he had a weak mind, he would probably go crazy and become a muddle-headed, thoughtless energy mass. After 4 or 5 minutes, Tan Xiao slowly retracted his palm and quickly retracted his released spiritual sense. He could still save Tang Yunda, but the process was very dangerous. This danger was not only for Tang Guosheng, but also for him. "How is it, Xiao?" Su Lingyun stood on the side and asked with a face full of expectation. Tan Xiao looked at his mother and sighed in his heart. Although his EQ wasn't high, he had a high IQ. How could he not feel his mother's anticipation? "Mom, is he really that important to you?" Tan Xiao was silent for more than 10 seconds before he slowly asked. Su Lingyun said firmly, "Very important. You and your son are very important to me." Tan Xiao savored this word in his heart and made a decision in his heart. He looked at Tang Guosheng and said in a deep voice, "I can't guarantee that I can cure him, but I'm willing to give it a try. Find us a secluded, quiet room where we won't be disturbed. It has to be a spacious place." Also, find me a silver needle. Tang Guisheng's eyes lit up and he replied in a deep voice, I'll arrange it immediately. Other than silver needles, what else do you need? Tan Xiao said, if your Tang family has the ability, you can go to the medicinal herb market or those medicinal herb shops to buy a lot of dragon fume grass. Remember, this herb is extremely rare and very expensive. Go buy as much as you can. Dragon fume grass? Tang Guisheng turned his head and shouted sternly, you all heard it. Go out and find it. Be quick. Find all the things Tan Xiao needs within 3 hours. Understood. Dozens of people of the Tang family rushed outside. Tang Guisheng looked at his wife, who had been staring at Tan Xiao. He secretly sighed inside. After a moment of silence, he said in a low voice, Tan Xiao, I'm afraid it will take some time for our family to find the herbs you need. It's very late now, so let's have dinner first. Even if you're not hungry, your mother is. Tan Xiao looked at his mother, who was sitting on the edge of the bed and holding his hands. He nodded silently. Qin Changyue quickly said, I'll cook. I'll cook myself. After saying that, she turned around and left the room in a hurry. Tan Xiao looked at Qin Changyue's back as she left. A warm feeling rose inside his heart. He was repulsed by the Tang family, but Qin Changyue's expression when she saw him was in his eyes. Each of her expressions and each of her actions was filled with a strong cordiality, joy, and love. He was not a man with a heart of stone. Qin Changyue's words and the hurried back that she left touched his heart. Even in his heart, he had already silently recognized this grandmother whom he had just met for the first time. Let's go out. Tan Xiao retracted his gaze and looked at Tang Guisheng. In the hall of the central room, Tang Xiao sat on the sofa, leaned on it, and closed his eyes. Since he had decided to treat Tang Guisheng, he had to conserve his energy and raise his spirit to the peak. Because he could only use his spiritual sense if he wanted to clean up the gray substance that blocked his sea of consciousness and meridians. If he was in an immortal sea of consciousness, he could do it in a flash. But the current him was too weak. He didn't even have the confidence that he could clean up the gray substance in one go, as well as remove the extravasated blood and nourish the atrophied nerves in his brain. The human brain was too complex, and he understood that he only had one chance. If he failed this time, it might cause other problems in Tang Yunda's brain, which would probably take his life. If his mother was willing to wait, he really wanted to wait until he became stronger to treat Tang Yunda. But he didn't want his mother to wait for him for 20 years, and then wait on him after seeing him. Nearly an hour later, Qin Changyue came to the hall wearing an apron. Her doting eyes fell on Tan Xiao's expression as she softly said, Grandson, the meal is ready. Call your mother to have a meal together. Tan Xiao opened his eyes and gently nodded to Qin Changyue. He got up and went to the next room. He found that his mother was holding Tang Yunda's hand, telling him how she missed him for the past 20 years. He sighed inwardly again as he pressed his mother's shoulder and said, Mom, eat something first. Eat and drink to your heart's content, so you can chat with him better. All right. Su Lingyun turned her head as a trace of a smile appeared on her face. In her opinion, it was time for the bitterness to end and the sweetness to begin. She had 2 big wishes for the past 20 years. One was for her son to smoothly enter a famous university, and the other was to find her husband who had been missing for 20 years. Although her husband was still unconscious at the moment, she was already satisfied. If her son could really cure her husband, she would have no complaints even if she had to die. Dinner. There were only 4 people at the dining table. They were Tang Guisheng, Qin Changyue, Tan Xiao, and Su Lingyun. The dining table was filled with fragrant dishes, and Qin Changyue was constantly putting food on the plate for the mother and son. The bright smile on her face made Tang Xiao have a good appetite as he ate 2 big bowls of rice and a lot of dishes. At this moment, Tan Xiao finally felt the Tang family's care for him and his son. He finally felt the atmosphere of familial love. With just a sentence from Tang Guisheng, dozens of Tang family's clansmen, including the Tang family's daughter-in-law, all left the ancestral house to look for the dragon fume grass. Since the chapter name is written 1 chapter and 2 chapters, there will naturally be a 3rd chapter. Although it's a bit late, the 3rd chapter is finally released. Thank you brothers and sisters for your strong support. I humbly beg for your recommendation votes and monthly votes. This family is very good. Tan Xiao put down his chopsticks after eating and secretly sighed in his heart. Grandpa, Grandma. At this moment, a voice came from outside the door. Immediately, a young man dashed into the dining room. When he saw Tan Xiao, his complexion turned sluggish, and his eyes emitted an unconfident light. Tan Xiao was also dumbfounded. He didn't expect that the person who came was actually Chu Yi. He also didn't expect that Chu Yi would call Tang Guixing and Qin Changyue's grandpa and grandma. So, he's my cousin? Tan Xiao, how come it's you? Chu Yi looked at Tan Xiao with a silly expression and involuntarily exclaimed. A trace of a smile appeared on Tan Xiao's face as he got up and said, "Are you surprised?" Chu Yi said, "More than surprised, it's simply shocking. I really can't believe that you're my cousin. Don't talk about relatives with me. Have you eaten yet?" Tan Xiao lightly said. "If not, just eat some." In order to find the dragon fume grass, I posted it on my WeChat moments. Coincidentally, a friend of mine had 8 of them, and he gave them all to me. However, my friend said that burning the dragon fume grass can raise one's spirits. No matter how tired one is, breathing in the fragrance of the dragon fume grass after burning can make one feel refreshed. However, it also has very strong side effects. If inhaled too much, it will cause dizziness and nausea. In severe cases, it can even cause coma. Tan Xiao narrowed his eyes as he looked at Tang Ying and asked, "Not many people know about the dragon fume grass. Your friend is quite powerful. Who is he?" Tang Ying looked at Tan Xiao and hesitated for a moment. She didn't answer Tan Xiao's question, but asked instead, "Before answering your question, can you answer mine first?" Tan Xiao was silent for a moment before he said, "Ask away." "My friend who gave me the dragon fume grass said that she knows a strange person," said Tang Ying. "But it's undeniable that this strange person is very powerful. He has very high attainments in painting, and his landscape paintings are the best in the world. Once in Tianjin City, this strange person gave my friend a landscape painting for free and sold several pieces of calligraphy at a sky-high price. His name is Tan Xiao. I want to ask, do you have any relationship with this person?" "So you're talking about Mu Weining?" Tan Xiao said indifferently. "That's right, that painting was indeed given to her by me. I also sold several pieces of calligraphy. Are you really the strange person that Mu Weining said?" Tang Ying was surprised. "It seems that my guess is correct. Cousin, we siblings must be closer in the future. Mu Weining and I are good sisters who have played together since childhood. We're real bosom friends. If you need my help, don't hesitate to ask. I guarantee that I can help you pursue her and get the beauty." Tan Xiao rolled his eyes. He was both angry and amused inside. He didn't feel like pursuing Mu Weining. He didn't have the mood to get the beauty. However, this cousin of hers was really interesting. In the blink of an eye, she had sold out her best friend who she was very close to. Qin Changyue, who was sitting at the side, listened to the conversation between Tan Xiao and Tang Ying. A surprised expression appeared on her old face as she said with a smile, "That child of the Mu family is good. He's barely enough to be a match for our family Xiao. And, you've already said it, but you must help your brother. To be honest, I like that child of the Mu family." Tang Ying laughed and said, "Grandma, I'm afraid I don't need to help him. He already has some thoughts. This brother of mine is very powerful, very, very powerful. Mu Weining now worships him to the extreme. She can't wait to devote herself to him." That's good, that's good." A smile blossomed on Qin Changyue's face. Sometimes, enthusiasm was also a kind of burden. Tan Xiao could feel the enthusiasm of the Tang family, as well as the cordiality expressed by them. Most of his indifference had also been worn away. He suddenly realized how correct Tang Guixing's previous words were. "Tan Xiao, it doesn't matter if you don't recognize us now. I know you're repulsed by these relatives. But I believe that even if you have a heart of stone, we can still melt your heart with what we'll do in the future. The descendants of the Tang family are the descendants of the Tang family. The thread of familial affection can't be cut off, nor can we give it up. These words. Tan Xiu was somewhat disdainful before. But at this moment, all sorts of feelings welled up inside his heart. His mood was particularly complicated. It couldn't be cut off, nor could it be sorted out. It was a different feeling in his heart. While waiting, the members of the Tang family were talking and laughing. Most of the content revolved around Tan Xiu and Su Lingyun. Those words of praise and the expression of familial affection made Tan Xiu finally accept them from the bottom of his heart. Finally, after all the members of the Tang family returned, Tang Guosheng put all the dragon fume grasses in front of Tan Xiu and said, "There's a total of 36 dragon fume grasses here. I wonder if it's enough?" Tan Xiu was silent for a moment before he slowly said, "It's already beyond my expectation to be able to find so many. It should be enough. However, no one is allowed to disturb me during my treatment. Even if the sky falls down, no one is allowed to disturb us." Tang Guosheng solemnly said, "I'll immediately mobilize the guards and seal off the entire courtyard. Whoever dares to disturb you will be killed without question." Tan Xiu nodded. He took the dragon fume grasses and came to a spacious hall. He saw that there was nothing except a bed in the middle of the hall. Tang Yunpeng was still unconscious on the bed, while his mother, Su Lingyun, was sitting on the bedside and saying something in a low voice. "Mom, you also need to go out," Tan Xiu said with a deep voice. Su Lingyun got up and said with concern, "Xiu, you must go all out. He's your father after all. Blood is thicker than water." "Don't worry." Tan Xiu nodded. Su Lingyun fell into silence for a moment. She looked at Tang Guosheng and the other members of the Tang family standing outside the door. With a bit of expectation, she said, "Xiu, can you promise me something before you treat your father?" "What is it?" Tan Xiu was confused. "I want to hear you call him Dad," Su Lingyun said with all seriousness. Tan Xiu fell into silence. The word was too unfamiliar to him. "Xiu, Mom knows you don't want to, but I beg you to call him Dad for me," Su Lingyun said bitterly. "He suddenly disappeared that year because he suffered a heavy injury and was in a coma. I believe he will never abandon us if he's fine. Your father is not in the wrong. It's Mom who is in the wrong." Chapter 261. Tan Xiu knew very well that treating Tang Yunda required a lot of mental energy. In particular, the removal of the gray substance between his sea of consciousness and meridians, as well as the mass of extravasated blood, completely required the coordination of star force and spiritual sense. Moreover, he needed to concentrate all the time. The input of star force and spiritual sense also had great requirements. Success. Tang Yunda woke up and survived. Failure. Tang Yunda died and vanished into thin air. Tan Xiu didn't want to let his mother down. After all, she had suffered for 20 years. Now, the good days she had been looking forward to finally came. Even if it was dangerous, Tan Xiu must go all out. A silver needle. In an instant, it pierced into the Qianding acupoint in the middle of Tang Yunda's head. Tan Xiu pinched the silver needle and carefully transferred a trace of star force into the acupoint. His spiritual sense quickly followed the star force and drilled into Tang Yunda's brain. The extravasated blood must be removed first. After that, Tang Yunda's brain nerves must be nourished and repaired. Only then could he slowly remove the gray substance. Under the control of Tan Xiu's spiritual sense, the silk-like star force slowly pierced into the coagulated extravasated blood, pierced and retracted, repeating the cycle. Every time the star force and spiritual sense were retracted, a trace of extravasated blood would be brought out. Time flew by. Tan Xiu's spiritual force had been concentrated to the limit, bringing out the extravasated blood again and again. It took a full hour for the coagulated extravasated blood to be cleared by 1/5. Subsequently, Tan Xiu retracted his star force and spiritual sense and quickly pulled out the silver needle on the top of Tang Yunda's head. His spiritual sense once again wrapped around the extravasated blood and pulled it out little by little. Then he pierced the silver needle into the Qianding acupoint and cleaned up the extravasated blood bit by bit according to the previous method. However, the speed was increased later, but it still took him 4 hours to clean up the extravasated blood in Tang Yunda's brain. The repair of Tang Yunda's brain nerves was still slow. The star force had a strong nourishing and repairing function, but Tan Xiao only repaired 60% of the atrophied brain nerves in 2 hours. Almost there. Thick beads of sweat appeared on Tan Xiao's forehead, but he didn't seem to notice it. At this time, the waves of mental fatigue brought him great trouble. However, he knew that the more critical the moment, the more he couldn't relax. Due to the removal of the extravasated blood and the repair of the nerves in his brain, if Tang Guoxing's consciousness could not be released as soon as possible, the problems that had formed over the past 20 years would cause a huge burden to his brain once they suddenly changed. Suddenly, a wisp of fragrance wafted into Tan Xiao's nostrils, and his spirit was immediately shaken. Knowing that it was Tang Yunda who ignited the dragon fume grass, he took advantage of the time when his spirit was slowly recovering to slowly remove the gray substance blocking Tang Yunda's sea of consciousness and meridians. This gray substance was even more troublesome to clean up than the extravasated blood. It had a viscous nature to begin with, making it even more strenuous to extract, and the amount of mental power consumed would also multiply. Half an hour later, Tan Xiao's face was as pale as a sheet of paper. The amount of gray matter that was cleaned up was less than 1/20th. The door was gently pushed open as Chu Yi tiptoed into the room. After his eyes fell on Tan Xiao, his complexion slightly stagnated, and a bit of a ghast expression could be seen in his eyes. Although he had seen Tan Xiao pinching the silver needle and piercing it into Tang Guoxing's head to treat him, his complexion didn't look good, but it wasn't like now. His face was covered with sweat, his complexion was pale, his lips were purple, and his brows were deeply wrinkled. After a moment of silence, he ignited another dragon fume grass and then left the room. Half an hour later, when Chui came back, he found that not only was Tan Xiao's face drenched in sweat, but his complexion was also as pale as a sheet of paper. His body was also slightly trembling. His heart was lifted up in an instant, and a worried look appeared in his eyes. When he ignited another dragon fume grass and left the room, the Tang family's clansmen who were waiting outside didn't go to rest despite their tired faces. The moment Chui came out and closed the door, Tang Guoxing asked in a deep voice, "How is it?" Chui hesitated for a moment and bitterly said, "I don't know." Tang Guoxing's complexion slightly changed as he asked, "But what?" Chui said, "Tan Xiao's condition isn't good. His face is full of sweat, his complexion is pale, and his body is also trembling. He looks very uncomfortable." In an instant, dozens of Tang family's clansmen looked worried. Su Lingyun hurriedly asked, "Xiao, he's not in danger, right?" "I don't know." Chu Yi shook his head. Time fleeted by. For hours later, when Chu Yi ignited the 11th dragon fume grass, Tan Xiao's slightly hoarse voice was transmitted to his ears, "Ignite one every 10 minutes." Chu Yi didn't answer, but he firmly remembered Tan Xiao's words. At this time, his worry about Tan Xiao had also risen to the extreme. Because, although Tan Xiao's face was covered with sweat, there was not a trace of blood on his face. Blue veins protruded on his forehead, and his lips were no longer purple, but had dried up and cracked, and even had blood stains oozing out. His body trembled twice as much as before, as if he would faint at any time. He hesitated for a moment. He quietly took out his mobile phone and took a photo of Tan Xiao and Tang Yunda, and then quietly left the room. "It's not over yet?" Tang Yunda asked with a worried face. Chu Yi shook his head and handed over the mobile phone, saying, "Grandpa, this is the photo I just took. Please take a look." Tang Yunda took the mobile phone. When he saw Tan Xiao's appearance in the photo, his body trembled and disbelief burst out from his eyes. Wretched. Miserable. He didn't expect that Tan Xiao would be in such a miserable state in order to treat his son's illness. Especially when he saw the blood overflowing from Tan Xiao's cracked lips, which made him feel a bit distressed. "Let me see." Su Lingyun quickly grabbed the mobile phone. When she saw Tan Xiao's appearance in the photo, she felt as if her heart was stabbed by a knife. 2 lines of tears couldn't help but roll down. She wanted to rush inside and stop her son from being treated, for fear of losing him. However, a trace of reason told her that she couldn't be impulsive. In case she disturbed her son, not only would she not be able to save her husband, but it would also bring a blow to her son. The photo in the mobile phone was constantly passed to the other members of the Tang family. When they saw it, all of them fell into silence. At first, they recognized Tan Xiu entirely because Tan Xiu had the blood of the Tang family flowing in his veins. But when it came to feelings, they really didn't feel much. But at this moment, they didn't think so. Tan Xiu asked them to find the dragon fume grass in advance. Perhaps he already knew that such a situation would occur, but he still treated Tang Yunda without any hesitation. This showed that he was a descendant of the Tang family who valued affection and righteousness. My grandson. After seeing the photo, Qin Changyue's tears couldn't stop flowing. She felt as if a knife was being twisted in her heart. She finally saw her grandson, whom she had been missing for 20 years, but she didn't expect that he would become like this. In the room, Tan Xiu had cleared 4/5 of the gray matter in Tang Yunda's mind, and the consumption of his spiritual force had also reached the limit. If he continued to persist, it would cause great damage to his spiritual force. However, the tenacity that had been tempered for thousands of years still made him persevere. Either he didn't do it, or he did it well. Tan Xiu's teeth bit the tip of his tongue, and the sting made him once again raise his spirit. However, the more time passed, the slower the gray matter's speed became. When Tan Xiu treated Tang Yunda for 27 hours, only 1/10 of the gray matter remained. At this moment, Tan Xiu found that Tang Yunda's consciousness had broken through his sea of consciousness and regained the ability to control his body. Don't move. A hoarse and weak voice came out from Tan Xiu's mouth. At this moment, Tang Yunda felt like he was dreaming. He didn't know how much time had passed in the outside world. He felt that he was trapped in the endless darkness for a long time. It was so long that he forgot the time and even almost forgot who he was. All these years, it was an obsession that supported him, not letting his consciousness collapse and turn into a mass of energy. A voice. He heard it. It was a very young voice. The moment he opened his eyes, he could clearly see Tang Xiu sitting cross-legged in front of him, looking particularly miserable. As his eyes turned, he also saw the scene in the room. Who are you? Tang Yunda's throat squirmed a few times, and a weak voice sounded. Shut up. Tan Xiu's hoarse voice sounded again. Tang Yunda was silent. Although he didn't know Tan Xiu, he also realized that Tan Xiu was treating him. It was all thanks to the young man in front of him that he was able to wake up from the endless darkness. With that gratitude, he remained silent and motionless. 32nd hour. The moment Tan Xiu cleared the gray matter, he finally couldn't suppress his boiling blood and spurted out a mouthful of blood. At the same time, his spiritual force and star power were completely exhausted. His vision turned black, and his body fell to the side. In an instant he completely passed out. Tang Guixing's chest was dyed red by Tan Xiu's blood, but he was more worried about Tan Xiu's safety. After all, the person in front of him was saving him. He wanted to help Tan Xiu, but his stiff body made his movements extremely slow. The sense of weakness that came from the soul made his vision turn black. Finally, when his hands touched Tan Xiu's arm, his vision turned black and he passed out. Outside the door, many members of the Tang family finally couldn't hold on anymore. Some went to other places to rest, while others directly sat on the bench and fell asleep. Tang Guixing, who had slept for a few hours, had been staring at the door with his weather-beaten eyes. On the side, Su Lingyun hadn't closed her eyes for more than 30 hours. Her eyes were red and she looked a bit embarrassed, but she still persisted, waited and prayed. Grandpa, should I go in and have a look again? Chu Yi squatted next to Tang Guixing and waited anxiously. He finally couldn't help but ask. Tang Guixing was silent for a moment before he nodded and said, Remember, don't affect my grandson. All right. Chu Yi nodded. He stood up and rubbed his numb legs, and then walked toward the door step by step. When he gently pushed the door open and saw the situation inside, his complexion suddenly changed. He turned his head and hurriedly said, Grandpa, it's bad. Today, the second chapter will be presented on time. If the recommendation votes for the day exceed 1,000 or the monthly votes exceed 100, the Silent Night Society will release the third chapter in the early morning. Please support me, brothers and sisters. Chapter 262. Tang Guosheng's complexion greatly changed. He quickly got up from the chair and sprinted to the door, asking, "What happened?" Chu Yi pointed inside and said with a trembling voice, "The treatment seems to be over." Tan Xiao He. Tang Guosheng looked at the direction of Chu Yi's finger. When he saw the comatose Tang Yunda and Tan Xiao on the big bed, his heart instantly twitched a few times as he rushed into the room. Su Lingyun's heart also jumped to her throat at this moment as she also rushed inside. Dozens of other Tang family members who were awake also rushed into the room. He's in a coma? Tang Guosheng looked at Tan Xiao's appearance. Despite his firm will, crystal tears still emerged in his eyes. Tan Xiao's miserable appearance made him extremely distressed. Xiao, what happened to you?" Su Lingyun threw herself to the bed and cried bitterly. The Tang family members looked at Tan Xiao's comatose appearance and also felt a bit worried. They didn't expect that Tan Xiao's treatment of Tang Yunda would turn into such a state. However, thinking about the more than 30 hours of treatment, they admired Tan Xiao from the bottom of their hearts. Tang Guosheng suddenly turned his head and shouted sternly, "Call Master Chen quickly!" Instantly, 2 members of the Tang family ran outside. Tang Guosheng was silent for a moment as he looked at Chu Yi and asked, "Do you have Chen Zhizhong's phone number?" Chu Yi quickly said, "Yes." Tang Guosheng said, "Call his number. I'll talk to him personally." Star City. Chen Zhizhong was accompanying several clients to have a meal. Recently, his medicinal herbs business had been booming, which made him very happy every day. What made him the happiest was that his cultivation was progressing very fast. Ring, 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 his cell phone rang. Chen Zhizhong grabbed it and saw that it was a call from Chu Yi. He immediately said to his several business partners with a smile, "You drink first, I'll take a call." After saying that, he stood up, picked up the call and said with a smile, "Chu Yi, what's up?" "I'm Tang Guosheng from the Tang family in the imperial capital." "Tang family? Tang Guosheng?" Chen Zhizhong stared blankly for a moment before his expression drastically changed. He strode out of the box and respectfully said, "Hello, old Tang. I'm Chen Zhizhong. Do you have any instructions for me?" "I heard that you're Tan Xiao's disciple?" asked Tang Guosheng in a deep voice. Chen Zhizhong answered. "If possible, I hope you can rush to the imperial capital immediately," said Tang Guosheng. "My grandson is now in a coma because he treated the patient. His physical condition doesn't look good. You're in the medicine business. I think I might need your help later." "Your grandson?" Chen Zhizhong was confused. What did Tang Guosheng's grandson have to do with his master? Could it be that master asked the old man to look for him? At this time, Tang Yunda already knew that he had been in a coma for 20 years. Although he felt that it was a miracle that he had woken up, he was still full of happiness when he felt the excitement of his relatives. Suddenly, he remembered the young man who saved him and quickly asked, "That's right. After I woke up, I found that the young man who saved me vomited blood and fainted. How is he now?" For a moment, the Tang family members looked at each other in dismay, but they didn't know what to say. Qin Changyue wailed for a while before wiping his tears and sobbing, "Son, don't you know that the person who saved you is your own son? He's not good now. Very, very bad." "What? My son?" Tang Yunda recalled that his wife was pregnant before he fainted. But he never dreamed that the young man he saw after he woke up turned out to be his own son. "How is he?" Tang Yunda's voice was somewhat trembling. Tang Min answered for her mother, "The family has invited a lot of famous doctors, but they are at a loss for his situation. They said that he has overused his mental energy and will be in danger." "Take me to see him." Tang Yunda struggled to stand up. 2 minutes later, with the help of the Tang family members, Tang Yunda came to the room where Tan Xiao was in a coma. When he learned about his son's situation from his father, Tang Guosheng, and the divine doctor of national medicine, Chen Tianhe, he wailed. As for the unconscious Su Lingyun, she was hugged in his arms and tears couldn't stop flowing down. At the imperial capital, all the big families, the members of the rich and powerful families, and even those who stood at the top of the pyramid of power in the country, had received the news that the Tang family's grandson, who had been lost for 20 years, had been found. Just when they were secretly surprised that the Tang family had added another member, another heavy news came. The Tang family's descendant was officially a divine doctor of Star City Chinese Medical Hospital. He had saved his father who had been in a coma for 20 years, but he himself fell into a coma and his life was in danger. For a moment, the top people in power in the country contacted Tang Guisheng one after another to inquire about Tan Xiu's situation and to comfort him. Many of the top doctors in the country also received the invitation from the Tang family and rushed to the imperial capital to visit the Tang family. Sorry, I met the condition to add more chapters yesterday. But Quiet Knight got drunk while entertaining the two great gods who came from afar. So, I hereby make up for it. There are still 2 chapters left today. Brothers and sisters, please continue to recommend your votes _. Chapter 263. At the Tang family in the imperial capital. Tang Guisheng was full of expectation as he welcomed one famous doctor after another. But he also sent them away with a disappointed face. That included the divine physician of the Tang family, Chen Tianhe. At the Tang family's ancestral residence, Chen Zhizhong and Long Zhenyu looked at the anxious faces of the Tang family's people and secretly sighed inwardly. After they arrived, they finally understood the cause and effect of the matter. They also understood that Tan Xiu only recently knew that he was a descendant of the Tang family. At this time, Su Lingyun had woken up from her coma. She tightly snuggled up to Tang Yunda with an anxious look on her face. In fact, she deeply regretted letting her son treat her husband. If her son didn't treat her husband, they wouldn't have encountered such danger. Although her husband was unconscious, he was at least still alive. Continue to spread the news. If anyone can cure my grandson, my Tang family is willing to give 1 billion yuan as a reward. Tang Guisheng pinched the cigarette butt and shouted in a deep voice. The Tang family's members in the courtyard looked dignified. No one dared to disobey Tang Guisheng's order. Even in their hearts, they would still choose Tan Xiu's life over Tan Xiu's life. At the entrance of the front courtyard, Gu Xiaoxue and Ouyang Lulu's car was intercepted. 4 soldiers in military uniforms and armed with firearms looked particularly indifferent. We're Tan Xiu's friends. Get out of my way. Ouyang Lulu stood in front of the 4 soldiers and angrily shouted. I'm sorry. No one is allowed to enter without the senior's order. One of the soldiers shook his head coldly. Ouyang Lulu said, then quickly go inside and report. Tell them that we're Tan Xiu's friends and we're going to visit him. A cold glint flashed in Gu Xiaoshue's eyes. She didn't want to waste time. Even if the people in front of her were soldiers, she still didn't care. Her figure flashed and appeared in front of the 2 soldiers. Her palm chopped down. The 2 soldiers only felt a blur before they directly fainted. Bastard! The other 2 soldiers reacted very quickly. When they saw Gu Xiaoxue make a move, they immediately pulled the bolt of their guns. Just as they were about to raise their guns, Gu Xiaoxue had already struck their temples with lightning speed, knocking them out. Enemy attack! In the alley, 2 soldiers in military uniform had their complexion greatly changed. The moment they rushed toward Gu Xiaoxue and Ouyang Lulu, they loaded their guns and aimed at them. However, they were clearly more than 10 meters away from the 2 of them, but they felt their vision blur, and they were directly knocked out. However, their roars still alerted many nearby guards. In just a few breaths, more than 10 guards rushed over. Get lost! With a flip of Gu Xiaoshue's hand, a flexible sword appeared in her hand. Her footsteps moved erratically, and her speed was so fast that it was impossible for the naked eye to capture it. The flexible sword slashed through the wrists of the guards like a spirit snake. The moment their wrists were cut, Gu Xiaoxue snatched the guns in their hands and threw them into the distance. Bang bang bang, a dozen gunshots rang out. In the inner court, Tang Guisheng's expression changed drastically, and the others in the courtyard also revealed shocked expressions. They didn't expect that someone would dare to cause trouble in the Tang family's home. Even the guards outside had already pulled out their guns. Yunpeng, go out and take a look. Tang Guisheng's face was gloomy as he shouted sternly. Tang Yunpeng replied and dashed outside. When he came to the front yard, he saw 2 guards in military uniforms being knocked into the yard from outside and heavily smashed onto the hard concrete ground. I'm Tang Yunpeng. Who are you? Gu Xiaoxue coldly snorted and her figure instantly disappeared. When she reappeared, she was already in front of Tang Yunpeng. Her slender white fingers were already clutching Tang Yunpeng's throat as she coldly said, I don't care who you are. Take me to see my Grand Master immediately. Otherwise, I'll kill you without mercy. Tang Yunpeng's eyes were filled with horror as his throat was clutched. A chill rose from the bottom of his heart. It was because this girl was 20 meters away from him, but she appeared in front of him in a flash. It was just like a divine skill in the fairy tales, teleportation. You? Who's your Grand Master? Gu Xiaoxue furrowed her brows and coldly said, Tan Xiao. Tang Yunpeng felt that the strength of her hand had reduced a lot and quickly said, Tan Xiao is your Grand Master? I'll take you to see him immediately. Gu Xiaoxue was silent for a moment. She released Tang Yunpeng and then said to Ouyang Lulu, who just ran in from the door, Let's go. They can't hurt you. All right. It was the first time for Ouyang Lulu to see Gu Xiaoxue's moves. Her lightning-like speed and ruthlessness shocked her. She knew that Gu Xiaoxue knew martial arts, but she didn't expect her to be so powerful. She was simply like a martial arts expert in TV dramas. Bang, bang, bang. A burst of rapid footsteps was heard as dozens of soldiers in camouflage uniforms rushed into the courtyard. Their black muzzles were aimed at Gu Xiaoxue and Ouyang Lulu. Tang Yunpeng took a deep breath and shouted in a deep voice, Don't shoot. An officer ran to Tang Yunpeng and saluted, Senior, it's our fault for failing to protect them. They broke into the courtyard. Please punish us, Senior. Tang Yunpeng had seen how terrifying Gu Xiaoxue was. Even though dozens of soldiers were pointing their muzzles at her, he still didn't feel safe. After a moment of silence, he said in a deep voice, You go out first and continue to guard. You two come with me. Quickly, Gu Xiaoxue and Ouyang Lulu followed Tang Yunpeng to the backyard. Ouyang Lulu? Why you here? After seeing Ouyang Lulu, Long Zhengyu immediately looked surprised and greeted her. With a bit of anxiety on her face, Ouyang Lulu quickly asked, Long Zhengyu, where's Tan Xiao? I heard he's injured. Is he all right? How is he now? Where is he? Looking at Ouyang Lulu's anxious expression, Long Zhengyu turned to glance at Tang Guoxing and bitterly said, He's still in a coma. His life is still in danger. Tang Guoxing frowned upon seeing the two girls coming in. He looked at Tang Guoxing and asked in a deep voice, What happened outside just now? A bitter smile was revealed on Tang Yunpeng's face. He glanced at the indifferent Gu Xiaoxue and said, It's them who broke in and injured more than a dozen guards. What? In an instant, Tang Guoxing thought that there was something wrong with his ears. The dozens of people in the courtyard also looked at each other in dismay, disbelief written all over their faces. The two of them were outrageously beautiful girls? Broken? And even injured more than a dozen guards? Are you kidding me? Looking at their soft and weak appearance, how could they possibly injure more than a dozen guards? It must be noted that those guards were armed with guns. Furthermore, the series of gunshots just now was absolutely not to scare people. Gu Xiaoxue's indifferent eyes swept over the others and coldly said, Tell me, where's my Grand Master? Grand Master? The dozens of people of the Tang family's complexions slightly changed and the surprise in their eyes turned more intense. Chen Zhizhong's expression moved and quickly said, Who are you? I'm Chen Zhizhong, Tan Xiao's disciple. Gu Xiaoxue's brows pricked. A respectful expression immediately appeared on her face as she cupped her fists and said, Gu Xiaoxue greets martial uncle. Who is your master? Chen Zhizhong was confused. Gu Xiaoxue shook her head and said, If Grand Master didn't tell you, it's not convenient for me to say. Where's Grand Master? I need to see his situation. Chen Zhizhong turned to look at Tang Guoxing. Although Tang Guoxing didn't understand why Chen Zhizhong worshipped Tan Xiao as his master, nor did he understand how Gu Xiaoxue became his grandson's grand disciple, he still said with a deep voice, Tan Xiao is in the side hall. I'll take you to see him. Everyone else is waiting outside. I want to go too, said Ouyang Lulu quickly. Tang Guoxing looked at her deeply and then nodded. After a while, Tang Guoxing took Gu Xiaoxue and Ouyang Lulu to the side hall. When the two women saw the unconscious Tan Xiao lying on the bed, Ouyang Lulu quickly threw herself to the bed and shouted, "Wake up, Tan Xiao! Don't shout. It's useless." Tang Guosheng shook his head and said while suppressing the grief inside. Gu Xiaoxue grabbed Tan Xiao's wrist and felt his pulse for half a minute. Then, she said with an ugly expression, "His mental force has been overconsumed, his spiritual force has been completely consumed, and his vitality is also fading." Tang Guosheng's eyes lit up and quickly asked, "Miss, do you have medical skills?" Gu Xiaoxue was silent for a moment and then said, "All of you go out and don't let anyone disturb me. Remember, no one is allowed to enter the door before I take the initiative to go out." Upon hearing it, Tang Guosheng quickly said, all right, we'll go out at once." "Sister Shui, can you cure Tan Xiao?" asked Ouyang Lulu hurriedly. "It should be no problem," said Gu Xiaoxue calmly. Ouyang Lulu immediately looked pleasantly surprised and quickly left with Tang Guosheng. Outside the door, Tang Guosheng shouted in a deep voice, "Everyone listen up. No one is allowed to go in without my order. The little girl inside is treating my grandson." "She can treat him?" Su Lingyun suddenly sat up and asked with a nervous expression. "I don't know, but she should be fine." Tang Guosheng shook his head. Su Lingyun clenched her fists tightly as tears rolled down her face again. She prayed inwardly, praying to God for protection. If her son could wake up and recover, even if she had to die, she would be willing to do so. Suddenly, her eyes fell on Ouyang Lulu and probingly asked, "Miss, what's your relationship with my son?" "Son?" Ouyang Lulu instantly understood Su Lingyun's identity. A trace of blush appeared on her face as she hurriedly bowed and said, "Hello, Auntie. I'm Tan Xiao's friend. We have a good relationship." Su Lingyun nodded and gave her a grateful look, saying, "Thank you for coming here. It's really my son's luck to have friends like you." She didn't understand, but the other people around looked at Ouyang Lulu with a somewhat strange expression. They had clearly seen Ouyang Lulu's girlish attitude a moment ago. Today's second chapter is here. Yesterday's recommendation votes have met the requirement for additional chapters. I don't know if it can meet the requirement again today. If so, Quiet Night will have 4 chapters today. Brothers and sisters, do your best. Both monthly and recommendation votes are fine _. Chapter 264. In the side room, Gu Xiaoxue took off her shoes and sat cross-legged behind Tan Xiao. She pressed her hands on his back and continuously injected true essence into Tan Xiao's body. "What's going on?" Gu Xiaoxue's input of true essence only lasted for half a minute before she immediately stopped. To her disbelief, Tan Xiao's body actually rejected her true essence. She originally wanted to use true essence to heal Tan Xiao, but not only did it not work, but it also added fuel to the fire, making Tan Xiao's body even worse. Could it be that Grandmaster didn't cultivate true essence? But if it's not true essence, how can I save him? Use the blood sacrifice method? Gu Xiaoxue's expression kept changing, and her eyes flickered with a look of hesitation. The blood sacrifice method could indeed save Tan Xiao, but it would be extremely harmful to her. Not only would her lifespan be reduced, but her cultivation speed would also be affected. After a dozen seconds of thinking, Gu Xiaoxue finally made up her mind to use the blood sacrifice method to save Tan Xiao. After all, Tan Xiao was her grandmaster, the person that her master cared about the most. Heaven and earth are black and yellow, devour blood and take life. Gu Xiaoxue bit her fingertip and made dozens of finger seals, forcing a drop of blood out of her body and pressing it between Tan Xiao's eyebrows. Between heaven and earth, a mysterious aura merged into the drop of blood that Gu Xiaoxue had forced out and then merged into Tan Xiao's eyebrows. Her body floated up and instantly appeared above Tan Xiao's head. As she stood upside down in the air, she pressed her palm on the top of Tan Xiao's head and a wave of Khanate Qi was transferred into Tan Xiao's body. After doing all this, her face was a little pale. After her figure appeared in front of Tan Xiao, she directly sat cross-legged and closed her eyes to adjust her breath. Now, she had surpassed the Golden Core realm and was just short of breaking through to the nascent soul realm. However, forcing out a drop of life essence and using the blood sacrifice method caused her to suffer a great loss. At least a few years of her lifespan had been reduced. At this moment, as Tan Xiu's life force drained away, his heart suddenly erupted with a powerful life force. That drop of Gu Xiaoshue's lifeblood essence contained an enormous amount of energy. This energy was more powerful than all of Tan Xiu's cultivation. Bang, bang. As his heartbeat grew stronger and stronger, the power of the stars and the sun that came from the distant skies started drifting over from all directions and fusing into his body. Tan Xiu's astral power gradually gathered and recovered a little bit. The mysterious aura was quickly stripped from the lifeblood essence and merged into Tan Xiu's sea of consciousness. It was also at this moment that Tan Xiu, whose consciousness had sunk into darkness, finally woke up from the chaos. Since the Tang family really regards me and mother as family, then let nature take its course. The time is too short. We'll see how it goes in the future. Those titles are meaningless. The most important thing is to see how we get along in the future. I can't make things difficult for mother. Thoughts flashed inside Tan Xiu's mind. He floated up and got out of bed. After putting on his shoes, he looked at Gu Xiaoxue and asked, "How did you and Ouyang Lulu come here?" "It's Ouyang Lulu's private jet," answered Gu Xiaoxue. "What about Ouyang Lulu?" asked Tan Xiu again. "Where is she now?" Gu Xiaoxue shook her head and said, "I don't know. I haven't left this side room for 3 days. But she's very concerned about you. She should still be in the Tang family." Tan Xiu nodded. When he opened the door and walked out with Gu Xiaoxue, the dozens of Tang family members gathered outside looked ecstatic. Su Lingyun even threw herself into Tan Xiu's arms and cried tears of joy. "I'm fine." Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and gently patted her back to comfort her. At the side, sitting in a wheelchair, Tang Yunda's movements were still a bit inconvenient. His thin face was full of excitement as he stared at Tan Xiu. No one had a more complicated mood than him. It was as though a bottle of 5 flavors had been knocked over. Sour, sweet, bitter, spicy, and salty feelings flooded his heart at the same time. However, what filled Tang Yunda's heart the most was guilt. Being born without raising one's father. It would have been fine if it was only this. But his son almost lost his life to save him. This made him, who was once unyielding and unyielding, unable to utter a single sound. Tang Guoxing, who stood next to Tang Yunda, raised his hand and gently patted his shoulder. His eyes moved from Tan Xiu to Gu Xiaoxue and said with gratitude, "Miss Gu, I really want to thank you. You saved my grandson's life. No matter what wish you have, as long as my Tang family can achieve it, you will absolutely be satisfied. Saving my grandmaster is my duty. I don't have any wish and I don't need the Tang family to repay me," said Gu Xiaoxue calmly. Tan Xiu gently pushed Su Lingyun away and wiped the tears on her face. His eyes then shifted to Tang Guoxing and Tang Yunda before finally landing on Qin Changyue, whose face was full of excitement and tears. Then he calmly said, "Grandma, I'm hungry. Tell someone to prepare something for me." "Grandma?" Qin Changyue was stunned. An incredulous expression appeared on her tearful face, but in an instant it was replaced by ecstasy. She felt like she was dreaming. Because Tan Xiu, who had always rejected the Tang family and was unwilling to admit that he was his grandson, had unexpectedly opened his mouth to call her grandma. "Great, grandma. Grandma will personally cook for you." The other members of the Tang family also looked pleasantly surprised. Su Lingyun quickly caught Kong Xia's hand and smilingly said, "Ah, so you're Kong Xia. I've often heard Xiu and Yining mention you, but I've never had the chance to meet you. She was so pretty and sensible. My son said that you've been busy with the business affairs. It's really hard on you." Kong Xia could feel Su Lingyun's amiable and approachable attitude. The smile on her face turned bigger as she said, "Auntie, it's what I should do." Su Lingyun shook her head and said, "The business affairs are between you and Xiu. But we've been away from Star City for so many days, and it seems that you've been taking care of Yining. In this regard, I should thank you." Kong Xia modestly said a few words. Subsequently, Su Lingyun busily introduced Ouyang Lulu and Gu Xiaoxue to Kong Xia. When she learned that Kong Xia knew Ouyang Lulu before, She no longer said anything. Originally, Kang Xia saw that Su Lingyun had come back and was ready to leave. But Su Lingyun knew that Kang Xia had a rest day today, so she pulled her and didn't let her leave. Her intimate attitude made it hard for Kang Xia to refuse. In the afternoon, Tan Xiu rushed back to Southgate Town. He found that except for Chen Jizhong, everyone else was at home. He chatted with them for a while and then called Kang Xia to the bedroom on the second floor. "Boss, I'm not happy." As Kang Xia closed the bedroom door, a bit of dissatisfaction was revealed on her stunning face. Even her small mouth pouted like a young girl. "What's wrong?" Tan Xiu asked with a puzzled expression. "I already know that you treated Uncle Tang. You almost lost your life. Ouyang Lulu also got the news, but I didn't know about it," Kang Xia said with dissatisfaction. Tan Xiu shook his head and said with a smile, "It was too sudden. You had a lot of things to do in Star City, so they didn't tell you. I'm fine now, don't worry." Kang Xia snorted and then walked to Tan Xiu's side. She pulled his arm and said, "You're not allowed to encounter danger again. Even if you don't think for yourself, you must think for me, for our magnificent Tang Corporation. You're the big boss. What should I do if something happens to you?" Tan Xiu and Kang Xia already had a close relationship, so he didn't reject Kang Xia's intimate action. Instead, he patted her arm and said with a smile, "Don't worry. I'll pay attention to my safety later. I called you here because I have something to tell you." "What is it?" Kang Xia asked curiously. Tan Xiu said, "I'm going to Jingmen Island and then go abroad directly from there. If everything goes well, I'll be back in 10 days to half a month. If there are any special circumstances, I'm afraid I can only come back before the University of Shanghai opens on September 1st. I'll leave the management of Star City to you." Kang Xia knew that Tan Xiu was going to the private island he bought, so she nodded and said, "Don't worry. I'll take care of the company well. If Auntie and Uncle need anything, I'll come to help." Tan Xiu nodded and asked about the thing he wanted to know the most. "How's the winery? Scarblade Chang should have brewed the wine, right?" Upon hearing it, Kang Xia's eyes immediately lit up. With a happy expression, she said, "It's indeed brewed. The taste is even better than the previous one. That wine is absolutely the best in the world. Also, I've thought about the name of the wine. It's called Immortal Dew. As for the price of each bottle, I've discussed it with the company's leadership and decided to set it at 18,888 yuan per bottle. That's a good price," Tan Xiu said with a smile. "Our winery has just been developed and the scale is too small, so the wine we can produce will be limited. Therefore, we'll take the high-end route. Also, our company's products will be the first to enter the market and make a profit, so we can set it as the wine. As for the marketing and sales, I'll leave it to you." Upon hearing it, Kang Xia said with a smile, "September 15th this year, Shanghai will have a triennial wine tasting conference. At that time, I'll personally bring our Immortal Dew to participate. At that time, we'll definitely amaze the world with a brilliant feat. Also, I'm going to set the sale date of the Immortal Dew on September 18th. As Tan Xiu walked to the cloakroom, he said, "You have the final say in this decision." Kang Xia was very happy after receiving Tan Xiu's affirmation. Following him to the cloakroom, she saw that Tan Xiu was preparing a change of clothes and quickly asked, "Boss, when will you go to Jingmen Island?" "I'll leave after dinner, and I'll take Yin with me," said Tan Xiu. "Ah, that's right, I brought Su Ben and Su Quan back from my hometown in Qinghe County. Arrange their work. Tell them to be security guards in the winery. They grew up with me, so I know their characters. Su Ben is honest, and diligent. Train him to be the security captain. Su Quan is smart and quick-witted. Let him stay in the security team first. After some time, transfer him to the company's sales department. Let him start from the bottom. If his performance is good, promote him appropriately." "All right." Kang Xia nodded. Tan Xiu quickly picked a few pairs of underwear and a jacket. After stuffing them into the suitcase, he also took a few pairs of shoes and socks and put them inside before zipping it up. He then turned to look at Kang Xia and said, "There's nothing else. You can go now. I want to take a bath and change my clothes." A smile hung on the corner of Kang Xia's mouth. She moved to the cloakroom's door and asked, Do you want me to help you scrub your back? With a strange expression, Tan Xiu said, You want to take a bath together with me? No problem. Buy some clothes and send them to me. Later, when you want to take a bath together, just come and find me. Ba? Who wants to take a bath together with you? You think too highly of yourself. Chapter 266. Hugging Gu Yin, Tan Xiu gently stroked her soft hair and calmly said, There are a lot of women who like me. Don't you think that outstanding men have the trait of attracting bees and butterflies? Gu Xiaoxue was amused. She suddenly found that this Grand Master, who was always unfathomable, unexpectedly had a humorous side. Tan Xiu looked outside the window and slowly asked, What has Ji Qi Mei been doing recently? I asked her to find the herbs to refine the spirit congealing pill. How's the progress? A smile appeared on the corner of Gu Xiaoshue's mouth as she said, All the herbs have been gathered. Elder Ji is currently refining the pill. If nothing unexpected happens, she should have refined the spirit congealing pill by now. Tan Xiu's expression moved as he nodded and said, The spirit congealing pill has a great effect on me, Yener, and Ji Qi. Even if you take a spirit congealing pill, you will have a good harvest. Also, I've drawn up a list of herbs with a total of 3,650 herbs. I'll give it to you later. When the time comes, you need to use all the resources to find these herbs. Buy as many as you can find. I've already told Chen Zhizhong that he's mainly in the herb business. You can also contact him after you get the list. Grandmaster, there are so many herbs, are they all used for alchemy? Gu Xiaoxue was surprised. Tan Xiu nodded and said, 3,650 herbs can be used to refine 7 kinds of pills. Each of them has a magical effect on us. Among them, there's a pill called the nascent soul pill. If you take it, you can break your golden core and break through to the nascent soul stage. Nascent soul stage? Gu Xiaoshue's eyes lit up. She instantly made up her mind to find all the herbs needed to refine the nascent soul pill. She would strive to refine the nascent soul pill as soon as possible and break through to the nascent soul stage. That's right, have the people I arranged arrived? Tan Xiu suddenly asked. You mean Wolfhead and the others? Asked Gu Xiaoxue. Tan Xiu nodded and said, It seems that they have arrived. Are they in the everlasting feast hall now? They arrived before I went to the imperial capital. I've arranged for them to stay and wait for your arrival, said Gu Xiaoxue. Grand Master, I don't understand. Our everlasting feast hall has so many experts. Why do you still want to recruit retired soldiers like Wolfhead? Tan Xiu calmly said, Do we have a lot of people? Don't forget who my enemies are when I return to the immortal world one day. Although those supremes in the celestial world couldn't be bothered to deliberately cultivate trusted subordinates, how many millions of experts did they have by their side? Who doesn't have an army of immortals guarding their territory? Gu Xiaoxue held her breath and immediately understood Tan Xiu's thoughts. Indeed, those lofty paragons of the immortal world stood at the pinnacle of trillions of immortals. It would be strange if they didn't have a large number of subordinates. Tan Xiu sighed and said, I once thought that as long as I was strong enough, no one could shake me. From then on, I understood the principle that 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. Although his own strength was important, it was also necessary to have a group of loyal and powerful subordinates by his side. If I had a group of loyal and devoted subordinates to protect me, even if those enemies wanted to deal with me, I'm afraid it wouldn't be so easy. I understand your thoughts, Grand Master, said Gu Xiaoxue with a solemn expression. The everlasting feast hall has only cultivated 20 children with good aptitudes in the last decade. It seems that this number is far from enough. 20? Tan Xiu was surprised. Children? I've been leaving the everlasting feast hall for a period of time every year for the last decade to gain experience outside, said Gu Xiaoxue. At the same time, I've been looking for some children with good aptitudes. All of them are street children, and those I've picked out are very suitable for cultivation. They're very young. The oldest one I adopted is only 6 years old, and the youngest is perhaps only 1 or 2 years old. Did you teach them a cultivation technique? Tan Xiu frowned. It's not a cultivation technique, just a basic cultivation technique for the qi refining stage. Gu Xiaoxue shook her head. On the one hand, it can help them change their physique, and on the other hand, it can let them accumulate experience from an early age. When they reach the peak of the qi refining stage in the future and pass the test, I'll teach them a more advanced cultivation technique. As a matter of fact, this is also my master's idea. Tan Xiao suddenly understood and said, I'll teach those experts trained by the Everlasting Feast Hall a cultivation technique after a short rest. Draw up a list and give it to me. Remember, I don't need them to have heaven-defying aptitudes, nor do I need them to be powerful. What I care about is their character and loyalty. All right. Gu Xiaoxue nodded and replied. The big man from the Everlasting Feast Hall who was driving was shocked inwardly upon hearing the conversation between Tan Xiao and Gu Xiaoxue. In his eyes, there was an intense light of surprise. They were all experts who were brought up by Gu Yan and trained through cruel means. They had absolute loyalty to Gu Yan. Even if Gu Yan gave the order, they would immediately pull out their swords and commit suicide or charge into the enemy lines. Similarly, they also knew that Gu Yan and Gu Xiaoxue were not ordinary people. They walked on a path full of thorns and thorns, yet they could become extremely powerful. Especially him. He could clearly hear the conversation between Tan Xiao and Gu Yan. What shocked him the most was the place Tan Xiao mentioned, the immortal world. The immortal world supreme. An army of hundreds of millions of immortals. These names that he had never thought of before made his blood boil. He wished he could immediately become a super powerhouse and go to the immortal world. He wanted to see the magnificent scene of the immortal world and compete with those powerhouses there. Bring those 20 children to me when we arrive at the Everlasting Feast Hall, said Tan Xiao. I'm going to pick 10 of them to take with me. Where are you taking them, Grand Master? Asked Gu Xiaoxue in surprise. The private island I bought is going to be turned into a holy land for cultivation, said Tan Xiao lightly. That place will be our base camp in the future. That's right, I remember there are 2 people, Mo On and Mo All. When I leave, let them come with me as well. I'll leave it to them to manage it later. Understood. Gu Xiaoxue nodded. At the Everlasting Feast Hall. When the car entered the parking lot, Tan Xiao came out while holding Gu Yin's hand. He then looked at Gu Xiaoxue who came out from another door and slowly said, Let's go see her now. Gu Xiaoxue nodded and gestured to several security guards who came to greet them. Then she led Tan Xiao and Gu Yin to the beach. Master, the sea. Although Gu Yin was more mature than her peers, she was still a child after all. Seeing the sparkling surface of the sea under the starry sky, they immediately revealed expressions of jubilation. Tan Xiao faintly smiled and reached out to pick her up. Then he lifted his legs and jumped to the boat docked on the shore. As Gu Xiaoxue floated up, the boat moved without any wind and slowly sailed toward the sea. Open it, said Tan Xiao. Gu Xiaoxue nodded and pinched her fingers into a lotus seal. The seawater in front of her separated, revealing a passage leading to the seabed. Wow, it's amazing! Gu Yin's eyes widened as she exclaimed. You can easily do it later if you practice hard. Tan Xiao faintly smiled. Gu Yin firmly nodded. A solemn expression appeared on her small face as she solemnly said, I'll definitely practice hard and become as powerful as martial niece Xiaoxue Master. Martial niece? Gu Xiaoxue's mouth twitched a few times as a helpless expression appeared on her face. According to seniority, she was indeed Gu Yin's martial niece. However, Gu Yin's age made her very depressed. After the Azure Sea universe was opened, Tan Xiao's group of 3 came to the seabed. Looking at the exquisite pagoda that exuded a faint golden light, Tan Xiao said, Open it. All right. Gu Xiaoxue quickly made a hand seal and shouted in a deep voice. Heaven and earth, only I am supreme. As the golden light bloomed, the pagoda's door slowly opened. Tan Xiao handed Gu Yin to Gu Xiaoxue and said, Her cultivation is limited and can't withstand the chill inside. Use your true essence to protect her. 2 minutes later, Tan Xiao came to the ice bed on the 7th floor and looked at the still unconscious Gu Yin. His expression softened as he gently lifted her up and silently hugged her in his arms. Seeing Gu Yan again, Tan Xiu's heart was calm. Whether it was the previous experience of his grandmother being beaten or the Tang family acknowledging their ancestors, all the good and bad emotions vanished at this moment. Speaking of feelings, Tan Xiu had received a lot of disciples, but the one he had the most affection for was Gu Yan. In his heart, Gu Yan was like his own daughter. It was he who raised Gu Yan, personally taught her cultivation techniques, and guided her to embark on the path of cultivation. In the past, he missed his mother, so he transferred his mother's care to Gu Yan. Yan, a master has come to see you again. Tan Xiu stroked Gu Yan's beautiful hair and said softly. On the side, Gu Yan curiously looked at Gu Yan. She was well-behaved and found that her master cared about Gu Yan very much. Although there was a sense of loss in her heart, she still stood beside Gu Yan and waited quietly. She had already guessed that the woman in her master's arms was her senior sister. At this time, Gu Xiaoxue was full of gratification. She could feel Tan Xiu's love for her master. In the past, she thought that her master had suffered so much for Grandmaster, which was really not worth it. But now, she finally understood. She understood that Grandmaster and her master were both sentimental people. Their words and deeds were in accordance with the most sincere intentions in their hearts. Master, wake up quickly. Xue has found Grandmaster. After seeing him, you will be very happy. Gu Xiaoxue clenched her fists and secretly prayed in her heart. Tan Xiu turned his head and looked at Gu Yan, saying, She is your senior sister, Gu Yan. She has experienced a lot of hardships and suffered a lot for Master. Now she is seriously injured and has been in a coma at the bottom of the sea. In the future, you must respect your senior sister as you respect me. Chapter 267. Early in the morning, when the first ray of sunlight rose from the east, the sea's surface sparkled. As Tan Xiu, Gu Xiaoxue, and Gu Yan appeared from the bottom of the sea and returned to the boat, the cracked sea surface closed again. They returned to the shore. Ji Qimei, who had been waiting for a long time, stood on the shore and saluted to Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu nodded and asked, How's the refining of the spirit condensation liquid going? Ji Qimei turned her hand and took out 7 jade bottles. She then said, All the herbs have been used up and a total of 7 bottles of spirit condensation liquid have been refined. Tan Xiu received 3 of the bottles and said, Give 1 to Yan, 1 for you and Xiaoxue. Give the last one to Xiaoxue for safekeeping in case she needs it in the future. Understood. Ji Qimei gave 3 bottles to Gu Xiaoxue and kept 1 for herself. After putting it away, she said, Lord, I received news yesterday that there will be an auction in Hong Kong this evening. I found an item in the auction list that looks like a soul tranquilizer stone. So I plan to go to Hong Kong myself to participate in the auction. Soul tranquilizer stone? Tan Xiu's complexion changed. Without hesitation, he said in a deep voice, The soul tranquilizer stone is very ordinary. If we can find enough soul tranquilizer stones, we can give Yan more time. I'll go with you. Ji Qimei nodded. Tan Xiu looked at Gu Yan and pondered for a moment. Then he said, Xiaoxue, I originally planned to take Yan to the private island I bought and let her have some fun there. But I changed my mind because I don't know how much time it will take. So I'll leave her with you and let her play here for a few days. Then you send someone to send her back to Star City. No problem. Gu Xiaoxue chuckled. Gu Yan curled her lips but didn't say anything. She wanted to follow Tan Xiu, but she had to give up after considering that she still had to attend tutoring classes. After breakfast, Tan Xiu asked Gu Xiaoxue to take Gu Yan to rest while he returned to the exquisite pagoda on the seabed. The time spent with Gu Yan made him feel tranquil. After meditating and cultivating for the whole morning, not only was he not tired, but he was also full of energy. After Gu Xiaoxue used the blood sacrifice method on him, and after a day or 2 of rest, he had replenished all the mental strength he had consumed, and his astral power was abundant again. In fact, it was even faintly increasing. This time, when he came to Jingmen Island, he brought all the precious ores he had prepared to refine an interspatial ring. He planned to take some time to refine an interspatial ring. After all, if one did not have a spatial ring, it would be very inconvenient to carry their luggage every time they went out. After lunch, Tan Xiu saw Wolfhead and the others in the parking lot. Looking at their serious expressions, Tan Xiu was secretly amused. He could see that the attitude of Wolfhead and the others was somewhat different from before. Perhaps it was because they had experienced the battle in Star City, or perhaps it was because they had seen so many experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall, but their originally arrogant temperament was greatly stimulated. "Tell me what you think." Tan Xiu looked at the 12 people and said faintly. Wolfhead said, "Boss, I'm a bit confused." Wolfhead said, "Boss, you obviously have many experts under your command. Why do you still want to subdue us? Whether it's those 20 experts in Star City or the guards of the Everlasting Feast Hall, none of them is worse than me. I came here 2 days ago and had a match with several guards here, and I lost miserably. Do you really think that I have many experts under my command?" Tan Xiu said indifferently. "Isn't it true?" Wolfhead asked doubtfully. "That's because you have no knowledge." Tan Xiu sneered. "What do you mean by many experts?" "Innumerable and inexhaustible. That's what it means. The Everlasting Feast Hall does have a lot of guards, but it's far from enough in my eyes. Those I train are the elites of the elites, the powerhouses of the powerhouses. Let alone you, even the guards of the Everlasting Feast Hall are ants in my eyes." Wolfhead had indeed seen how powerful Tan Xiu was. But hearing Tan Xiu describe the guards of the Everlasting Feast Hall as ants, he still felt a bit uncomfortable inside, thinking that Tan Xiu was too arrogant. The other 11 people also had the same feeling, and the way they looked at Tan Xiu also changed a bit. Tan Xiu raised his brows and lightly said, "You don't believe me? Boss, you're indeed very strong, but the guards of the Everlasting Feast Hall are not much worse than you know?" Wolfhead said, "If they're ants, I don't think there are any powerhouses in this world." Tan Xiu frowned. He turned his head to look at Ji Qimei, who was silently leaning on her dragon head crutch. Then he lightly said, "What do you think about her strength?" Wolfhead stared blankly for a moment before he couldn't help laughing. "Boss, is this old lady also a martial artist? I'm afraid she can't even beat us, no?" Tan Xiu coldly said, "Ji Qi, there are a few trees 100 meters away from here. I don't like them." Ji Qimei finally raised her head. Her cold eyes swept over Wolfhead and the rest. Then she immediately waved her crutch high and swept it toward the woods 100 meters away. A suffocating aura burst out from her body as an invisible blade wave directly cut down dozens of waist-thick trees in the periphery. Boom, 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 dozens of trees loudly fell to the ground, raising a cloud of dust. Wolfhead and the rest were dumbfounded as they looked at the dozens of trees that were cut down 100 meters away. Their bodies trembled violently. They were horrified and shocked, feeling that it was inconceivable to the extreme. When they turned their heads to look at Ji Qimei, it was as if they were looking at a terrifying monster. Ji Qimei retracted her aura and put away her dragon head crutch. Then she lightly said, "How can ordinary people understand the strength of the Lord? Although I can destroy the entire Jingmen Island with a punch, I'm afraid I'm not even as good as an ant compared to the former Lord. It's your good fortune to meet the Lord and be valued by him. Remember, if anyone dares to doubt the Lord again, I'll be the first to kill him." Inadvertently, Ji Qimei released a trace of killing aura, causing Wolfhead and the rest's complexion to pale. They felt a chill enveloping their bodies. They wanted to retreat, but they lost the ability to move, as if their bodies were no longer under their control. Terrifying. This old woman was too terrifying. Was she still a human? The eyes of Wolfhead and the rest turned to look at Tan Xiu. At this moment, the thought that Tan Xiu was arrogant vanished in an instant. When they saw Tan Xiu raise his hand, their bodies suddenly felt light as they were once again in control of their bodies. "You just said that you can destroy the entire Jingmen Island with a punch?" asked Wolfhead with a trembling voice. Ji Qimei sneered, "The entire Jingmen Island? In this palm-sized place? If not for fear of scaring you, let alone the entire Jingmen Island, I can blow up the entire planet with a punch. Furthermore, I'll be unscathed." How is that possible? Wolfhead exclaimed. She's right, Tan Xiao said indifferently. It's just a planet. A lot of people can destroy it with a snap of their fingers. You're just ordinary people. There are a lot of things you don't understand, and you don't need to understand it now. Remember to work well for me. If you perform well, I can train you so that you can step out of the atmosphere in the future and walk in the universe. Wolfhead and the rest gulped down their saliva. If it wasn't for Ji Qimei's unimaginable strike, they would never have believed Tan Xiao and Ji Qimei's words. What one hears may be false, but seeing is believing. They finally understood that they were inferior to ants in front of Tan Xiao and Ji Qimei. Loyalty. Performance. Wolfhead and the rest had a real thought in their hearts. They had heard from Tan Xiao that he could make them very strong, but they had never seen Tan Xiao's inhuman means. At this moment they saw it through Ji Qimei. They wanted to learn the real skills from Tan Xiao. They wanted to learn the kind of terrifying strength that ordinary humans couldn't have. For this, they were willing to pledge their loyalty to Tan Xiao and work for him faithfully. Alright, I won't mention this matter to you later. I hope you can bury what you saw and heard today in the bottom of your heart and never disclose it to anyone. Tan Xiao said, also, I need to go to Hong Kong. The 12 of you go directly to the private island I bought. I'll send the address to Wolfhead's cell phone. Remember, find a place and wait for me there. I'll contact you when I get there. Understood. Wolfhead and the rest respectfully replied. As the 12 people left, Tan Xiao looked at Mo On and lightly said, You'll follow me to the private island after the auction in Hong Kong. You two brothers will take care of the island for the time being. I'll send someone to take over in September. Understood. Mo On respectfully replied. Tan Xiao then looked at Ji Qimei and lightly said, Let's go. Don't delay the auction. That's right, did you bring money? I don't have much money on me. Young master gave me 10 billion, said Ji Qimei. If it's confirmed to be the soul tranquilizer stone, young master will transfer the money if we don't have enough. 10 billion? Tan Xiao raised his brows and curiously asked, How much money does the everlasting feast hall have now? I don't know. Ji Qimei shook her head. I never ask about business matters. Tan Xiao smiled and directly sat in the car. 2 cars with a total of 4 people quickly headed toward a port in Jingmen Island. They had to go by water from Jingmen Island to Hong Kong. Since the distance between the 2 places was not too far, they could reach Hong Kong from Jingmen Island in a few hours. To Tan Xiao's surprise, the Everlasting Feast Hall didn't have its own private jet, but it had a super luxurious cruise ship. Although the cruise ship was not very big, it could accommodate hundreds of people. Boss, young master bought it. Young master has to explore some islands in the nearby waters every 2 years, whispered Mo On, who had been following beside Tan Xiao, after seeing Tan Xiao's surprised expression. This cruise ship is good. Tan Xiao nodded. Let's go. Let's grab the time to board the ship and reach Hong Kong earlier. All right. Mo On personally led the way and everyone boarded the cruise ship. Chapter 268. Hong Kong was one of the most prosperous international metropolises in the world, known as the Pearl of the Orient. With the development of the times, every inch of land here was worth its weight in gold. It was the world's gourmet capital, a paradise for shoppers, and the cradle of dreams. When the luxury liner moored in the Victoria Harbour, it attracted a lot of attention from the people on the shore. After all, the price of this luxury liner was higher than most of the luxury liners in the Victoria Harbour. Boss, our car has arrived. After hanging up the phone, Mo On followed Tan Xiao to the shore and reported in a low voice. The Everlasting Feast Hall also has people in Hong Kong? Tan Xiao was surprised. We have business in Hong Kong, said Mo On. The Everlasting Feast Hall has branches in 5 places all over the country. Aside from Jingmen Island and Hong Kong, we also have branches in Macau, the imperial capital, and Shanghai. I've contacted the person in charge of the restaurant here before we came to Hong Kong. Alright. Tan Xiao nodded. For the Everlasting Feast Hall to have such a huge fund, it meant that their business was not limited to Jingmen Island. After a moment of silence, he asked, What other businesses do you have aside from the restaurant? Jewelry, antiques, and real estate, said Mo On. There are so many businesses? Tan Xiu was surprised. Is Gu Xiaoxue managing them? Mo On smiled. Little boss only controls the overall situation. Every business of the Everlasting Feast Hall has a special person in charge. For example, Tian Li is in charge of the restaurants in Hong Kong, Macau, the imperial capital, and Shanghai. Hao Lei is in charge of the jewelry business, Chen Xiaohua is in charge of the antiques business, and Jin Cheng is in charge of the real estate business. Soon, Tan Xiu saw Tian Li, who was in charge of the restaurant's business. She was in her 40s, wearing a business suit with long flowing hair. She wore gold-rimmed glasses and exuded a scholarly aura. But while Tan Xiu was looking at her, Tian Li was also looking at Tan Xiu. What shocked her was that Tan Xiu was so young. Tan Xiu nodded lightly and said, "You've worked hard. Please arrange a place for us to stay in Hong Kong first. We will stay in Hong Kong today and leave tomorrow. The accommodation has already been prepared." Tian Li personally opened the door for Tan Xiu and said respectfully, "Director Tian?" Suddenly, a surprised voice sounded nearby. Then, a middle-aged man ran over with several men and women following behind him. Tian Li turned around. When she saw who it was, she raised her eyebrows slightly. The visitor was the big boss of Hongfeng Advertising Company, Hong Fu. He was also a frequent guest of the Everlasting Feast Hall in Hong Kong. With a smile, he nodded and said, "Hello, Boss Hong." Hong Fu said with a smile, "I didn't expect to bump into Director Tian here. I even invited you to play golf yesterday. Unfortunately, you don't have the time." Tian Li turned to look at Tan Xiu, hesitated for a while, and said, "Xiao Hong, this is my boss. Let's talk about golf later. My boss has just arrived in Hong Kong and he is a little tired now. I have to go now. See you later." Hong Fu stared blankly as his eyes stayed on the calm expression on Tan Xiu's face. He knew a lot about the Everlasting Feast Hall, but he didn't expect that the Everlasting Feast Hall's boss turned out to be such a young man. A few seconds later, he quickly took out a business card from his pocket and came before Tan Xiu, saying with a smile, "Hello, I'm Hong Fu, the boss of Hongfeng Advertising Company. It's an honor to meet you today. May I know your surname, sir?" Tan Xiu took the business card and glanced at it. Then he lightly said, "My surname is Tang. I'm sorry, but I don't have a business card." The smile on Hong Fu's face froze, but it was restored in an instant. As someone who had gone through many hardships in the business world, he believed that Tan Xiu must have a business card. The reason why he said that was because he didn't want to give his business card to him, nor did he want to have too much interaction with him. It doesn't matter. As the Everlasting Feast Hall's boss, Mr. Tang is very mysterious in our circle. We wanted to get to know the Everlasting Feast Hall's boss a long time ago, but I didn't expect you to be so young. Since Boss Tang has just arrived in Hong Kong, then I won't bother you any longer. You can call me when you have time, and we'll have a few drinks together," said Hong Fu with a smile. "All right." Tan Xiu nodded and turned to sit in the car. As the two cars started, they quickly disappeared at the end of the road in the distance. Behind Hong Fu, several men and women had already arrived. One of the middle-aged men retracted his gaze and lightly said, "Old Hong, that young man is really crazy. He's just a restaurant's little boss. Do you need to be so polite with him?" Hong Fu turned around with a forced smile on his face, saying, "Do you really think he's just a restaurant's little boss? Hee, the Everlasting Feast Hall is not ordinary. What's unusual about it?" The middle-aged man was confused. "The Everlasting Feast Hall's headquarters is in Jingmen Island," said Hong Fu. "I've been to Jingmen Island many times and visited the headquarters there. It's said to be a restaurant, but the Everlasting Feast Hall in Jingmen Island is actually an upscale villa. Furthermore, the Everlasting Feast Hall has branches in Hong Kong, Macau, the imperial capital, and Shanghai. The annual income is a very large figure. Even if the Everlasting Feast Hall scale is not small, I'm afraid it's a lot worse compared to your Hongfeng Advertising Company, no?" Hong Fu glanced at him and shook his head. "Didn't you hear it clearly? The Everlasting Feast Hall's boss is very mysterious. Do you really think they only run a catering business? I once learned about this restaurant and found that the Everlasting Feast Hall and the Grand Fortune Jewelry have a deep relationship. In other words, the Grand Fortune Jewelry and the Everlasting Feast Hall have the same boss. Do you think my advertising company can be compared with the Grand Fortune Jewelry? What? The middle-aged man's complexion slightly changed, and even the other men and women looked surprised. They all knew about the Grand Fortune Jewelry, a jewelry company with at least billions of assets. The person in charge was Hao Lei, a famous businesswoman. Many businessmen in Hong Kong were very curious about who the behind-the-scenes boss of the Grand Fortune Jewelry was and who the famous Hao Lei worked for. If the Grand Fortune Jewelry and the Everlasting Feast Hall's boss are the same person, then that young man's identity is not simple. The attitude of the middle-aged man who just spoke obviously changed. China is a big country with many hidden dragons and crouching tigers. Hong Fu sighed. Many inconspicuous characters are actually very powerful. It's just a pity that that young man surnamed Tang doesn't want to get close to us. It's our first meeting after all. The middle-aged man smiled and said, maybe we'll have the opportunity to establish a friendship after we meet more. Let's go. We'll have afternoon tea at my place since we still have to attend the auction in the evening. Let's go. Hong Fu shook his head and said with a smile. Number 13, Repulse Bay Road, Hong Kong. It was a luxurious villa worth hundreds of millions of yuan and covering an area of 18,000 square feet. Aside from the three-story main building, there was also a separate warehouse, gym, tea room, and sauna. There was also a private cinema and an indoor swimming pool in the main building. When two high-end cars arrived outside the courtyard, two security guards in black uniforms saluted and opened the electric gate with a remote control. In the courtyard in front of the main building, aside from the garden, there was also an outdoor swimming pool. 10 men and women stood on both sides of the wide road leading to the main building of the villa, watching the two cars coming in. Boss, we've arrived. Tian Li, who was in the front passenger seat, got off the car and opened the back door. Tan Xiu walked out of the car and saw the men and women standing on both sides. Then he slowly asked, "Where are we?" "This is the property that Little Boss bought in Hong Kong," said Tian Li respectfully. Little Boss has come to Hong Kong twice in the past few years and lived here both times. Yesterday, I received the news that Elder Ji was coming to Hong Kong, so I sent some people to clean this place in advance. Except for the servants who are responsible for the daily maintenance, no one else lives here. Tan Xiu nodded and walked toward the main building of the villa. Chapter 269. The first thing Tan Xiu took out from the portfolio was a stack of photos. He didn't rush to look at them, but picked up the stack of photos and quietly looked at them. In the photos was a large isolated island in the middle of the blue sea. The island was surrounded by crisscrossed mountains and lush trees, creating a beautiful scene. At the highest peak in the center of the island was a majestic castle full of European style. The flat road branched into 3 roads at the top of the mountain. One led to the castle, one led to the nearby parking lot, and the last led to the helipad. 9 hills extended for a kilometer toward the sea, with a European-style pavilion at the end of each hill. Following the mountain path down to the sea, there was a private pier where passenger ships were anchored. 9 Dragons Island. 9 dragons spitting pearl. Tan Xiu's eyes lingered on the photos. The more he looked at them, the more satisfied he was. His cultivation holy land in the immortal world was called the 9 Dragons Spitting Pearl Secret Land. Just looking at it from the outside, one could imagine the terrain. The only difference was that the 9 Dragons Spitting Pearl Secret Land in the immortal world was thousands of times bigger than 9 Dragons Island. After completely taking over 9 Dragons Island, I must contact the nearest real estate company. The earlier I renovate it, the earlier I can officially use it. Unfortunately, the Long family's real estate company is not there. Otherwise, it would save me a lot of trouble. Tan Xiu sighed inwardly and looked at the detailed information. However, he didn't have much faith in this information since the things recorded in it were not detailed enough. Knock, knock. While Tan Xiu was reading the information and thinking about it, someone knocked on the door. "Come in." Tan Xiu put down the information in his hand and lightly said, The door opened as Ji Chime respectfully said, "Lord, it's time for us to set off. Go out and wait for me. I'll be right there." Tan Xiu nodded. Understood. As Ji Chime left the room, Tan Xiu packed up the information and stuffed it back into the portfolio. He then went to the bathroom to wash his face and then went to the villa's courtyard. To his surprise, the two cars parked in the courtyard of the villa were not the ones Tianli had used to pick them up. One was a Rolls-Royce and the other was a powerful Hummer. Where did this car come from? Tan Xiu was surprised. Mo On stood in front of the Rolls-Royce's door and said with a smile, "It's in the garage. Little boss likes to collect all kinds of cars a few years ago, so I ordered this car from abroad." "How many cars are there in the garage?" Tan Xiu asked. Aside from these two, there are also 2 sports cars," said Mo On. Tang Xiu forced a smile and said, "Don't you think driving this car is too flashy?" Mo up, Zayat Hong. Of the smile on of Hong Tang. Long, Tang Xiu suddenly, Li Zhou of the from the rich of Tai. Of the rich. The Li Jiu dynasty up in of. It seems that the richest man, Li Juren, lives in Hong Tang. The thought flashed in Tan Xiu's mind as he sat in the door opened by Mo On. This was the first time he sat in a Rolls-Royce. The interior was super luxurious, and it was especially comfortable after entering. There was a sofa, a small table, and even an LCD TV and fridge inside. Rich people are really extravagant. Tan Xiu sighed inwardly. 20 minutes later, just as Tan Xiu closed his eyes to take a nap, he suddenly felt the car shake violently. The front of the car had hit the guardrail on the roadside. "What's going on?" Tan Xiu suddenly opened his eyes and asked in a deep voice. Mo On, who was driving, had already stopped the car at this time. He turned his head and said with a wry smile, "It's a few sports cars. One of them ran the red light and hit our car." Tan Xiu looked out from the window and saw a red sports car also hit the roadside stone nearby. A man and a woman came out of that car. They were very young. The man wore earrings and had long hair dyed purple. He looked very handsome, but there was an angry look on his face. The girl was also wearing strange clothes. She was dressed in a non-mainstream style, and her face was slightly pale. Creak. At this moment, 3 more sports cars stopped nearby. Although no one got out of the 3 sports cars, they all honked their horns. Tan Xiu slightly furrowed his brows. He looked at Mo On and said, "Let's go and have a look. Our time is limited and we can't delay any longer." Understood. After Mo On got out of the car, the young man with long hair dyed purple angrily raised his arm and shouted, "What's the matter with you? What's so great about driving a Rolls-Royce? You dare to block my car? Don't you know who I am?" "For you." Mo On's face was cold as he asked aloud. The young man slapped the hood of the Rolls-Royce and shouted, "Have you heard of me, Jiang Yu?" "Never heard of him," said Mo On indifferently. "Also, you're the one who directly hit us with your car. I'll hand this matter over to someone else to deal with. As for the compensation, you can discuss it with the others." After saying that, Mo On dialed Tian Li's cell number. Jiang Yu sneered, "Compensation? Are you kidding me? Who the hell are you? Who's the big shot sitting in the car? Come out and let me have a look." In the Hummer, Mo Au and Ji Qin came to the front. The grumpy Mo coldly snorted and said in a deep voice, "I'll give you a chance to get the hell out of here. No matter who you are, someone will find out your identity later and settle the compensation with you. Get the hell out of here." Jiang Yu frowned. He knew that a wise man knew better than to fight when the odds were against him. But being reprimanded by the other party made him a bit embarrassed. Immediately he waved at the other sports cars. You can't even handle such a trivial matter?" 3 young men, each with a girl in their arms, came before Jiang Yu with grinning faces. They glanced at Mo On and the Mo On brothers before their eyes finally fell on Ji Qin. One of the young men sneered, You're too careless. Is our car fast?" "It's not fast, right? Didn't you kiss your pretty girl when you were driving?" "Ah, you see, this old man is so old. It's your fault if he gets scared by you." Jiang Yu sneered and pointed to Mo On and the Mo On brothers, saying, "These two guys have offended me. I'm not happy about it. Who's going to help me teach them a lesson? I'll invite you to the Elysium tonight." One of the young men rolled his eyes and scolded with a smile, "You're an idiot. Don't you know that a wise man won't suffer a loss? Look at them. They're tall and strong. You're just looking for a beating if you fight them now. All right, I'll take care of this matter. Someone will clean them up later. Let's go quickly. In case the traffic police come, we'll have to waste our saliva." Jiang Yu pointed to Mo On and the Mo On brothers. He took 2 steps back and shouted, "I'll remember you too. Just you wait for this, father. I'll make you kneel in front of me and kowtow to apologize." What a big tone. Tan Xiu came down from the car. His indifferent eyes swept over the several youths and lightly said, "Didn't you two hear what he said? Don't tell me that such an arrogant brat is not worthy of you tidying him up first?" Mo On and the Mo On brothers stared blankly for a moment. Then, a bright smile appeared on Mo On's face. He moved in an instant and appeared in front of Jiang Yu, fiercely slapping him in the face. With just a slap, he sent Jiang Yu flying and heavily smashed the ground 4 or 5 meters away. Mo on the other hand, directly kicked the young man who just spoke. Tan Xiu shook his head and turned to walk toward the Hummer behind. He didn't want to waste time on these little popinjays. "God damn it. Stop it." The other 2 youths' complexions greatly changed, and one of them shouted and cursed. A grim smile appeared on Mo O's face as he punched the other young man and knocked him down. Then, he looked at the only pale-faced young man standing there and sternly asked, "Tell me, whose family's brats are they?" The young man's legs were somewhat trembling, but he still replied in a deep voice, "You're out of luck. Jiang Yu is the young master of the Jiang Group. Chen Fei is the heir of Wanyuan Real Estate. Du Yang is the young master of Du Kong Winery. No matter who you are, you'll have to pay a painful price for beating all 3 of them at once." "Then, whose family's young master are you?" Mo On sneered. The young man subconsciously stepped back and said in a deep voice, "I didn't offend you, so you don't need to do anything to me. My surname is Qi Changxing." Mo On glanced at him indifferently and lightly said, "You're tactful. Quickly take them and scram. It won't be easy to deal with them if they appear in front of me again in the future. Also, tell the elders of the family surnamed Jiang that they must compensate for hitting our boss's car." After saying that, he, Mo, and Ji Qimi turned and walked toward the Hummer in the back. Soon after, the Hummer roared and left. As for the Rolls-Royce that was hit, it was directly left there. As for the follow-up issues, Tian Li would arrive soon, so they didn't need to worry about it. Qi Changxing and the 4 non-mainstream girls helped Jiang Yu, Chen Fei, and Du Yang, who were knocked down. Qi Changxing shook his head and said, "Jiang Yu, Chen Fei, the 2 of you were too rash this time. This extended version of the Rolls-Royce costs at least tens of millions. I'm afraid that the person who can afford this kind of car is not simple. However, I've never seen that young man in Hong Kong. If my guess is correct, he shouldn't be a local." Jiang Yu's cheeks were red and swollen, and there were bloodstains on the corner of his mouth. He shook his dizzy head and covered his swollen cheek with one hand, shouting viciously, "I don't care who he is. He dared to hit me, so he must be prepared for revenge. If he doesn't kneel in front of me and apologize, I'll change my surname to his." Chen Fei's face was also full of hatred as he angrily shouted, "There are indeed some families in Hong Kong that we can't afford to offend, but that brat is definitely not one of them. I'll send someone to find him and kill him." You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.